21. I finally looked legal. I was approached by easily the most handsome man I've ever met, and we dated for 2 years. That was a massive confidence booster for me. So although I still don't know how attractive I actually am, that was the first time I realized I wasn't ugly. Only over the last year or so, when multiple people started telling me you could do better when showing pictures of exes that I deemed to be attractive. When reasonably attractive girls asked me out. When my mates started telling me that I'm a good-looking dude. I didn't have my first kiss till I was nearly 21. I was a late bloomer and definitely not attractive in school. I still don't entirely believe it, to be honest, but enough people are telling me that I'm starting to. So hey ho. 21, a late bloomer, hard crap. So for the purpose of clarity, I'm gonna have to do away with any kind of humility. So I realized I was kind of attractive when people that I thought were attractive seemed romantically interested in me. I wasn't a good looking or cool kid, but when I hit 16 I started getting way more attention from girls that I thought were hot. When I hit 19 I knew I had become really attractive because, and this is something that I was only able to recognize because I'd seen it happen with a buddy of mine who had always been a good looking guy. People would talk about it, my good looks, as if it were fact or a foregone conclusion. I think that's when you know someone's really good looking. When you go out to the club and other guys assume that the hottest girls are interested in you, or girls assume you've got a long list of other girls lining up for a date, or people say things like you should be a model. Another big one from when I was younger, early 20s, was older women and gay men will just straight up say it. I think it's because they know you're probably not interested in them, so the uncomfortability of rejection is taken off the table so they can be very open, but yet they'll just blurt it out like it ain't a thing. Oh, that's definitely true. When people act like you're full of crap when you say you're not that attractive is another big one. Older women definitely shoot their shot so causally it throws me off too. When a guy who incessantly bullied me as a kid for being fat tried to hit on me as an adult. He didn't recognize me. Turned him down in front of all of his friends. Best feeling ever. Well, I guess it all started the first time I went through the 2nd grade. I caught my reflection in a spoon while I was eating my cereal, and I remember thinking, wow, you're ridiculously good looking. Maybe you could do that for a career. I had to scroll pretty far down, but I found it. Such a classic. When a few of my female friends told me I used to have such a crush on you in high school. In fact, a lot of girls did. I never knew about it, so I never made any passes at them and went through high school thinking I looked like a potato. Around the same time I learned to lie to myself. Alright folks, I did it for the sweet internet points. I'm not that bad. I could stand to lose some weight. Starting a family will do that, but the local ladies still invite me out, which leads to some rejections. But I bet it's not related. I was walking past some guys on campus throwing a frisbee and one guy missed it and said, "I'm sorry, I just got distracted by the most beautiful girl I've ever seen." He was hot. That's pretty cute, Lamia. When I first started working a year ago at my current job, I didn't talk to anyone. One day 2 girls tell me to hang out with them during break. We became friends, added them on the good old Facebook and messaged them for a good month. Eventually find out they stopped being friends for a while and had a huge argument over me about who saw me first and basically had dibs on me. I felt like a piece of meat. A handsome piece of meat. A really cute girl in my psych class put her hand on my shoulder in a conversation once. Gave it a squeeze and then glanced at my shoulder. She made this little out of the office sound. Her eyes kinda glazed and she started just kinda holding her hand there, lightly squeezing. I was pretty uncomfortable about it at this point and asked if she was okay. She just sorta smiled and said, "Yeah, much better thanks," pats my shoulder and turns away. I asked another girl what that was about and she just said, "Really? Girls like hot guys. I should go to the gym." Very recently, was out at a trivia night with a group of randoms from Meetup. The waitress was super hot, and literally ignored the rest of the table whenever she came by, asking dude at the end of the table what they wanted to eat while still looking right past them at me, for example, and then made a point of coming to sit down with me while I finished up my drink after they all left. That was a nice feeling. When I was a kid, I never thought of myself as attractive. The boys at school, and the girls, made it very clear that I was a buck-toothed freak. went on holiday to Cape Town December 1998.
No shit.
I was 13 then, and we were in a restaurant one day after a few days of sun and swimming, and I went to the bathroom. As I was washing my hands, I looked up into the mirror and suddenly my face looked different. Guess the tan paid off well against sun-bleached blonde hair. I just stared at myself and wondered if it really was me. I didn't recognize myself. Shrugged it off and went back to my family. But I then started noticing that grown butt men were staring at me. It freaked me out. Boys started wanting to hang out with me on the beach. It freaked me out. I was never hot, and I never wanted to be. But that was the day I realized that I wasn't a total troll. I like this comment a lot. For some reason, a little bit of self-confidence genuinely does show on the outside as well. I admire people that can pull off the completely untanned look. I go from a 6 to a 7.5 after a few days in the sun. Moved away from my home country, Mexico. Over there I'm an ugly crap. In the USA I'm a charming Latino, and on Asia I'm a Western oddity, a Latino. My wife kept harping on about it. I mostly went along with it to shut her up. Fine. I'm gorgeous. Can we keep watching Drive? Well, if somebody calls you hot in a presence, even if only on the screen of Ryan Gosling, you have to be hot enough. To be honest, people have always told me, but I still find it hard to believe it, because I have little to no confidence. Don't know when it really was. When I was younger, pre-high school years, I was shy and awkward. I blame this on being raised by my grandma. I loved her to death, but being a grandma's boy is not good. In high school it was better. Still was awkward with girls, but I got a girlfriend in junior year. That was probably a good sign. I guess I always felt reasonably attractive, but not real confident about it. I'd say in my early 20s it hit me that I'm actually pretty good looking. Not super handsome. But as the years went on, 35 now, I started to notice it more and more. So yeah, I'm freaking handsome. Damn it. To be honest, a lot of it came down to social anxiety. I was never equipped growing up with the skills to be comfortable with girls. My grandfather passed when I was 6. So my only male role model was my uncle, but he was not around often. He served in the army.
I didn't know they had like 6 ultimates. Jesus Christ, give me a break.
My personality developed and grew. That helped out a lot. I'm really good at making people laugh, which is a great skill. I'm also good at rambling. Got out of a depression. Got to boost self-confidence and esteem. Learned to apply basic makeup and buy clothes that fit me and my personality. Looked in the mirror and smiled. My eyes were smiling too and thought, dang, is this how I've always looked, or WTF just happened? In online dating I get some dates with some amazing looking, and generally amazing, women. Sadly my personality isn't so attractive. I also got 85s on Photofeeler, which I think is pretty good. When I actively tried to change how I looked, I was chubby, had a stubbly beard and decently long balding hair. I basically let my mom do my clothes shopping for me and didn't really care about it. Now I'm shaved bald, have a medium-sized beard, and have been slowly dropping the pounds and packing on some muscle. For the first time in my life, I was happy with what I saw in the mirror. When I looked back at my school years and all the times girls would run to me just for a hug, all the time in schools when my groups consisted of mostly girls, or when I was in school struggling to decide which girl I liked most because so many of them were being super nice to me. I dealt with weight issues from my senior year of high school, 2011, until about a year ago. I never looked great, was 5 feet 8 and 256 pounds. I changed my lifestyle, my eating habits, and some of the negative influences I had in my life. Within the last year I lost 100 pounds and now weigh 156 pounds. I was at a bar about 6 months ago when I was weighing 175 pounds and looked a lot healthier, and for the first time ever a girl approached me at the bar and wanted to talk to me and showed actual interest. For me this is something that has never happened before and really threw me off. It also was the first time I truly felt like I was doing something 100% right in my life. From then on I really stuck to my diet and working out, and I feel much better about myself and my confidence has gone way up. Late but frick it. The summer between my gap year and my first year of university, I broke up with my longtime HSGF and started working out. Then I started a summer job of landscaping. Went from 205 to 170, while still working out 3 times a day, so I was decently toned. I knew I always had an attractive face, but that summer of weight loss shaved a lot of fat off my face and gave me a jawline. It also gave me a nice butt tan, which helped. So week before school starts, I go to a party that one of my HS friends hosted, and they had their second year friends there too. I show up at the house and a girl I hadn't seen all summer, but I had known since daycare days, comes out and says, "Holy crap, you got hot," which was flattering. I fully realized it when a lot of her girlfriends were hitting on me at the party and wanted me to come back to their house, lol. Then school started and it was amazing because girls would just talk to me. As in, I'd be standing in the cafeteria line alone to get some lunch and a girl, who I would have previously thought was out of my league, would walk up to me and say, "Hey, you're in, right?" It was a completely foreign concept to me. I broke up with my girlfriend of 5 years and within days I had female friends flirting with me or asking me on dates. And NBSP. I got a lot more matches on Tinder than my brother. We were having a competition to get matches. It got to the point that I started lying about it when he asked me and giving him a smaller number. And NBSP. All of my relationships and romantic flings were initiated by the girl. And NBSP. I get a lot of very graphic compliments from my male friends about what they would do to me if we were both gay. And NBSP. Overall, I think part of why I've been successful with women is that I'm not too conventionally attractive. I am tall and in shape, but my face isn't angular. I don't have piercing blue eyes, and I'm not intimidatingly muscle bound. I kinda have a Jim Halpert look to me, I suppose. That last one I haven't experienced, lol. Either your friends are very attractive. When my current girlfriend, right after the first time we made love, made me stand in front of the mirror naked. She wanted me to acknowledge how attractive I am and look at the proof. I had really bad self-esteem issues and more insecurities than anyone should have, and she saw past all that and saw me for who I really was. I almost cried right then and there, because I hated looking at myself so much and didn't know what she saw in me. She kept pouring love and compliments all over me, and for the first time in my life, I started to believe her. It's been almost 10 years now, and even though I still have some insecurities, I truly now believe that I am an attractive man who is worth something and am no longer ashamed of my own reflection. Because if someone who is truly as beautiful as her loves me as much as she does, then there must be something worthwhile in me. I love you, babe. Dang, what a keeper. When Mrs. Drewski stopped being interested and put me back on the market, apparently I am a magnet for 30-year-old single mothers.
Whoa.
I looked in the mirror one day mid-laugh because I was being told a joke on the phone. I didn't recognize how bright and joyful I look because I usually have a static expression. I realized I could look good with the right attitude and I have dimples and a great smile. I like myself a little more now. It happened the other day when I was looking into the bathroom mirror and the guy staring back at me was an early 30s guy without kids, has a nice house and a steady income. I posted in our roastman, and while most of the comments were grade A roasts, a lot of people just told me not to kill myself because I'm white and at least half decent looking. The beard doesn't suit you, a pretty boy though. About the age of 17 I started getting hit on by girls in clubs in a way that none of my other friends never did. Girls would just walk up and sit next to me. I had girls just come up and kiss me out of the blue while we were dancing. I wouldn't say I'm particularly attractive. I'm just very tall, and I'm skinny but was also very fit at the time. I was cycling competitively, and I liked dancing, and that seemed to push some girls' buttons. To make it worse for my friends, I have some mental health issues that make me very uncomfortable with that kind of thing, so I repeatedly knocked them back. Back when I was 21-ish, this very attractive girl, a bit older than me, came up to me in a bar and started flirting with me. I pretended I had a girlfriend to try and get her to go away. By the end of the night she was openly begging to sleep with me, loud enough for the entire table to hear, and I was politely declining. My friends were pulling their hair out. I know that sounds like I'm bragging, but trust me, it's really not as fun as it might sound. Being attractive, but your personality being the thing that keeps you alone is a pretty hard thing to reconcile. Doesn't happen anymore anyway. I guess I grew out of whatever mojo I had. I've got to tell you, Harvey Weinstein is probably the first person that I've ever looked at a photograph of and said, yeah, he rapes. I'm not sure this moth Earth has a choice. Not a handsome man. A lot of meat and extra skin on his face. He's ugly. The sad part is, he's done so well in life. He probably doesn't know he's ugly. When you're good looking, everybody will tell you. When you're ugly, you've got to figure that out for yourself. Dave Chappell. When the girl at school who talked about my butt behind my back, been loud enough for me to hear, pulled me into her room on senior trip to throw down like a dirty clown. Was a good trip. Was reaffirmed when an ex flew from Houston to Orlando. Called me up to pick her up from the airport. Spent the night with me. Then had me drop her back off at the airport so she could fly back to Houston. Was a 1,000-mile booty call. I still think this might have been a alibi. She was into government and after college went to work for the US Embassy in Sweden. Yup, you're an accessory to murder, my friend.
No shit.
When my ex called me fat and ugly to try and make me feel crap about myself. I always thought I was anyways, but that day I thought, you know what? No, I'm attractive and there and butthole. I had sex with my female French teacher who was French and 8/10 hot. After that I realized that I am either charming, excellent at French or fairly attractive. It's not the first two, so it had to be the third. Alternatively, my French teacher may have been having a breakdown, but I don't like to entertain that thought. Once I got Tinder, I started getting all these girls who are super into me, and they always send me these cool links to websites. I'm not super attractive by any means, but I realized I was good looking when I graduated high school and suddenly a lot of really hot girls wanted to bang me. I'll be honest, this whole thread is depressing. I shouldn't have come here. When I posted on Arajian Ladiblas and got 27 upvotes, that means 27 people find me attractive, right? While someone's dong pic got 100 plus upvotes. I literally lost to a dong. I've also deleted the post. When my parents' friends were discussing it from primary school, felt weird hearing discussions about my legs and butt equals. I still don't see myself as attractive, but I accept that others see me that way, and I'm trying to learn how to overcome my personal view of myself. I was raised by a mother that would insult my looks or weight. I found friends that did the same. I saw it as normal treatment, so I didn't realize I was hanging out with trash. Cue entering the adult world where I don't hang out with the trash much, and I don't live with my parents. I start meeting women a lot more often who compliment me and seem to want to touch me, and they aren't freaking with me. My friends got it into my head that the girls flirting with me in
There was
school
no way
were
I was gonna
pranking
win
me,
that match.
so I always blew them off. It wasn't until I was grown that I realized my friends always seemed to be right there to talk to girls I had just told to leave me alone. As an adult on my own, I started dating a lot. I never once accepted myself as handsome, but I accepted they saw me that way. I actually became basically a bad guy myself. I regret a good portion of my 20s. I'd lie and string women along. I would date multiple women secretly for as long as I could. I was a cheating, manipulative piece of crap, and I broke a lot of hearts quite on purpose. I can't even remember what most of the women looked like, let alone their names. Looking back, it was a very empty part of my life. I hated myself and I took it out on innocent people. Then I fell for someone hard. She did the same to me that I had done to so many others. As much as I still hate her, I also credit her actions as my turning point. I saw my reflection and I was horrified. From then on, I learned to be respectful, fair, and honest to anyone I dated. Still had a lot of broken butt relationships, but for once, it wasn't solely my fault, and I continued to learn. Then I became quite visibly disabled with the loss of my legs. I still had no problems having an active dating life. I now know I must truly look good, and my personal view is from repeated abuse in my youth still lingering. I'm working on that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.
Defeat. This really got my blood pumping.
Oh, lucky.
Bye for now. At what point did you realize that you were just being used? When I said that I can't afford to keep footing the bill every time we go out, and her response was maybe you should work harder. There comes a point in many friendships where you realize that if the tables were turned, the other person probably would not do nearly as much for you as you're doing for them. This hit me really hard. Frick, I'm always the first person to raise my hand when a friend is moving. The last time I moved my wife and I did it alone because everyone was busy. They stopped inviting me out and texting me when I told them I didn't want them to store their weed at my place anymore. So much for best friends. When she complained to me, I wish someone would just buy me a car so I don't have to drive around that $500 beater. I had bought her the $500 beater. You can buy me the $500 beater. As long as it runs vaguely well, I'll love you. Walking like 9 miles one way for grocery shopping while it's freezing outside is not fun. My friends, married, would always want to just hang out with us 3 alone, never inviting me to hang out with their other friends. They would ask me to watch their dogs all the time while they were out of town with said friend group because the dogs just love you only. I think I fully realized it when all the friend pictures in their house included none of me. I was with my ex-fiancé for 3 years. There were a lot of major red flags that I was being used during the last 5 months of our relationship. His company lost a lot of jobs, barely had any work for their employees to do, maybe worked a couple hours once or twice a week. All his co-workers went and found side work together to stay afloat. He didn't join them. He did stop paying his share of the bills and instead used that money to go out drinking all day or buying some new unnecessary part for his truck. Every time I asked if he could chip in even just a tiny bit for bills he said he couldn't. Then I'd find a receipt for a $100 bar tab carelessly left on the counter. It was obvious he had checked out and just wanted to sit around, do whatever he wanted and not work. The defining moment was while we were driving home after hanging out with friends. Someone jokingly asked when we were planning to get married. We had been engaged for 2 years. I flat out asked him, when are we getting married? When are we going to start a family? We talked excitedly about it so much after he proposed. You know, I don't really want to get married. I think we're fine how we are. And I don't even know if I want kids. Yeah, I'm being used. He's just dragging me along. He doesn't love me anymore or was never in love with me to begin with. But I'm definitely just the person who pays his bills. I had a suspicion he was cheating again but no evidence. It was my birthday and I asked if he wanted to go to dinner. Obviously I would be paying. No, he didn't feel like it. He didn't get me a gift. I didn't want anything but I hoped for some small gesture. A handwritten note, something. I bought myself a small cake. You want to hang out and eat cake with me? No. Too busy watching TV. A week later I told him I was done. That he could take a couple days, but he needed to pack up and go back to his dad's house. Suddenly he was crying. Suddenly he was paying attention to me. I'll marry you, we can start trying for a baby tomorrow. With what job? What money? Next day, I found out a couple weeks later he was seeing another girl behind my back and that she was pregnant. Back in high school, I was one of the first to have my license and a car. I noticed that my friends wanted to hang out with me a lot less when they got their own cars' licenses. Yet, not very proud that I didn't see the writing on the wall. They say it was just a coincidence that we fell through at the time, but I think it's pretty obvious. This is very common in high school. Everyone used each other for lifts. We had been friends since
3, 2, 1, fight.
Redditors who didn't know they were in the outer circle of a friend group. What was Euro crap? They don't really like me that much. Moment. Got pretty sick and was in the hospital for a week. Not one of my friends in a small group of supposedly close friends reached out to see if I was getting better. They never visited. Didn't even so much as get a text from them. We hung out almost daily for the past 2 years and they knew I was in the hospital. When I finally got better, I decided it was time to get some new friends. This happened to me. One single person came to visit me in that week. Not the person I had been seeing for a month. Not my roommate. None of my friends. Only my manager from work, the job that didn't fire me for missing shifts while hospitalized. Those 3 months recovering gave me a lot of time to think about my relationships. Thank God. I was sitting at the lunch table with them and they were talking. It then dawned on me that they never talked to me during lunch or reached out to me during break. I was basically following them around like a stupid lost puppy all the time while they couldn't care less. Back in high school, I thought I was best friends with a girl on my sports team for 3-4 years. Through thick and thin I've been there for her. I supported her through day-to-day depression, bullying, abusive home life, multiple suicide attempts, giving her my clothes when her dad periodically burned hers, bringing her food from my house, splitting my bus tokens so she didn't have to walk home from practice late evenings. You have to qualify for them. Letting her wash her clothes and bathe at my house so she didn't get ridiculed. Stuck up for her during a time. Be this year because I only want to hang out with friends. But I'll see you on Monday. I didn't even know what to say and stared blankly at her. Then went to class, then practice. I felt hurt and was so salty that McDonald's could have used me for their French fries for a long time after that. I haven't spoken to her since. You had transcended.
Just here to tell you, you are a legend, bruh. What's up?
12-13 YO. It was for my best friend's birthday. They said let's sit in a circle and list our favorite things about each other. Sounded wholesome. So I sat in the circle. When my turn came around, everyone in the circle had nothing positive to say about me. But wait, you're actually really annoying and we don't like you. My best friend looked sad for me but didn't say anything. Dang, kids are mean. Clearly it was envy caused by their poor anal hygiene. Been at my job almost a year. Noticed on Snapchat everyone was together for some drinks. Managers, staff who started decades ago, staff who started weeks ago. Everyone, except one other person. I texted her out of curiosity about it and she responded with yeah. They asked me but I couldn't go. I tried to laugh it off but man did that hurt. I always thought I had a good rapport with my co-workers but I wonder now am I just being tolerated by them? They all told me they had cancelled their plans to go to a lake over the weekend. I found out they actually went and had replaced me with someone else through their Snap stories. It's always a bad sign when they post it on their Snap stories. But seriously, that's like one of the worst dog moves a person can pull. I became friends with a group of women my own age, mid-20s. Through a mutual friend we all shared.
Whoa.
I thought we were getting along
You got the
really well.
orbs.
We would meet up at least once a week and do dinner and movies at one of our homes. I was invited to weddings, hosted baby showers. We all belonged to the same social media group and chatted constantly. Then gradually I started noticing I was no longer being invited to things. I would show up at an event and be totally out of the loop as far as major life changes were concerned and no one would bother telling me anything or filling me in. I then found out through that mutual friend that the group had gotten tired of me and instead of saying anything they had created a new social media group without me and were just waiting for me to take the hint and leave them alone. So I did. I stopped trying to stay connected and just let the 4 years of friendship die. I saw them all at that mutual friend's wedding recently and tried to have a casual conversation, catch up and everything, but not a single one of them even looked at me or said a word to me.
Cranking it up.
When did you realize that you were the problem? I noticed my friends were all getting happier / advancing in life and I wasn't. Courage to say this. Not even. I would say ignorance is bliss. You could be a total frick up and not know it due to ego / bravado / low IQ. If you didn't know, and then didn't give a frick, well that's a different story. Fairly recently realized I'm fat because I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because I'm fat. Either way I'm the only one who can fix it, and I have started giving a frick. I had a similar realization. A lot of things that hold me back are related to my insecurities, and a huge. What was the stupidest thing someone has asked you 100% seriously? I work in a toll booth and was working on the westbound side. A lady drove up to my booth really mad. which is par for the course, but I digress. She told me that every day she takes this route home from work, and every single day, the sun is directly in her eyes. Well, of course, she's driving westbound at 6 p.m. When I mentioned this, she brushed it off and asked, well, can't you change the direction of the road or at least put a cover over it? I can't be the only person who is bothered by this. Just a second. Dear madam, we'll make the world revolve around you. It just takes a second. I was at my cottage looking at the stars at night with a friend, and she turned to me and asked, are there countries in the sky? I didn't know what she meant, so I asked her to explain, and then she said, well, are there any countries in the world that are just kind of in the sky? I was so confused that I just sat there in silence, but eventually she says, I mean, is there land on the earth in the sky where people live that are countries? At that point I just gave up and said no, and she replied, oh, okay, so reassuringly. My 21-year-old sister once asked my entire family at dinner, if nuns don't have sex, where do they get more nuns? That takes the cake for me. Now imagine being 21 and not knowing that all nuns are clones of the original nun. For context, I work in a phone shop. Customer, what is this? Hands me his bill. Me, this is your bill. Customer, but I already paid it. Me, well then, don't worry about it. Customer, no, I mean I paid it last month. Me, oh, this is just your second bill then. Customer, but I already paid IT. Me, last month's bill. Yes, this is your next bill. Customer, you mean they keep sending these every month? Me, yes, that's what a phone contract is. You signed the contract for 2 years, didn't you? Customer, yeah, me. So you will get a bill each month for 2 years then. Customer, what ARIP off? He legit thought he would only get a single $90 bill for his brand new iPhone over the entire 2 years of his contract. Whoa there, buddy, just imagine this guy signing a lease for an apartment. Waited on a woman who asked me what kind of meat was in our beef taco salad. Lady, what kind of meat is in your beef taco salad? Me, beef. L, what kind of beef? Me, beef. Ground beef seasoned with taco seasoning. L, no, I mean, is it pork or chicken? Me, mom, it's beef. It's from a cow. It's beef. What day of the week is Good Friday on? Do you mean what date? No. What day of the week? It was on a Thursday last year. No. I've gotten a similar one to this. Isn't it cool how Good Friday always lands on a Friday? In his defense, it clicked in his head a second later. If it was possible to even land a plane on Japan because it's so small. Because, you know, maps are a one description of the world :
No.
working for a rafting company, I'm asked far too often at the end of the float if we are back at the start. Rivers don't flow in goddamn circles. Reminds me of a story my dad once told me. Some of his friends were camping near a river and one of them got in a truck tire and floated downstream. Then he got out, ran all the way around the camp and got back in the water. When he passed the camp again, he said, "Look guys, it flows in a circle." One of them actually believed it, got in truck tire and floated away. I once asked someone to look to the left of something on her screen. She asked my left or your left. We were both facing the same direction. You can pick. I have a buzz cut. A guy at work recently asked, "Dead seriously, do you cut your hair? Or does it only grow that long?" I got a haircut with bangs when I was around 13, and when I showed up to school the next day, one of my classmates asked me how I grew them so fast. Not me, but our safari guide in South Africa said he once heard a woman ask her husband, "Honey, is that the same moon we see in Texas?" Not asked, but in high school show choir, we took a trip to Toronto from the US for a competition. One girl thought Toronto was in Florida and only packed bathing suits, shorts, and crop tops. Laughs in Canadian. My current boss asked me to make the pages smaller so she can see all of them. She had Excel zoomed into 200% and thought I was just sending things in font 46. This person has been in her position for 12 years. Hug. This is my favorite one, because I'm not convinced this isn't my boss. Someone was placing an order once at my family's restaurant, and they had asked me for a side of French fries without the potatoes. I assumed she was joking, so I laughed. She wasn't joking. She got offended and left the restaurant LOL. First day working a tech support job. I answer a phone call from a woman whose laptop won't turn on. She's at the airport trying to get some work done and is very frustrated because she had been working for several hours during a layover and the laptop suddenly shut off. I asked her if she had the laptop plugged in when it shut off, or if she was just running it on the battery. It can be plugged in. I thought it was supposed to be wireless. I honestly thought I was being pranked because I was the new guy. After a lengthy pause to decide if this was a serious call, I advised her to try plugging it in. The laptop turned on. She was amazed that it didn't just recharge itself when she wasn't using it. I used to work at a sub shop and a lady asked me how much bigger is the 8-inch compared to the 6-inch. I replied with 2 inches. That was that. Literally had a guy ask me yesterday if I hit the cashback button. Does the money come out of my account? Dude was like 30 and he thought cashback was just free money, I guess. Do we have the ability to open digital files? This is the guy who would print PDFs from our server then scan the print to his email so he could save them to his desktop. Ugh. I'm in my 40s but have a lot of co-workers in their 60s. I send them PDFs and they always print and then scan them. Guaranteed. When I was a kid, I asked my dad for a tuna fish sandwich without a tuna fish. He handed me 2 pieces of bread. To this day, I've never seen him laugh harder than he did the first time he told me this story. He said I was about 4. While holding a container of molten salt. Do you know if there's sodium in salt? I mean, I know there's iodine to prevent retardation. But is there sodium? It must have been hard not to respond to that retardation bit. In high school, we were warming up before a baseball game one evening and some really ominous dark clouds started rolling in. One of my teammates very seriously asked, is that a storm or is it just night coming? I will never forget that. This one's my favorite. In my driver's ed class, the instructor was discussing cardinal directions. He asked a girl on the front row what direction her house was from here. She points out the window and he goes, so, west? She responds, well, it's my east because I'm facing you. Should have stuck with west. A girl at school asked me if Wisconsin was the capital of Texas. She was confused cause she moved to TX from we. I said no, it's Austin and Wisconsin is a state, not a city. She said, oh, thanks. We were high school freshmen. How? Just how? You live there, girl. I worked in a pizza restaurant when I was 16. They had a pizza they called a UFO pizza. It was just another slab of dough on top of a regular pizza, and it made it look like an orb, hence the name. One day a guy that worked there was writing down a telephone order, turns around and says, hey guys, how do you spell UFO? The owner looked mortified and just repeated UFO. He stared back in silence for a few moments before it hit him. For unknown reasons, I'm pretty good at spelling and had 2 of my not so bright and very stoned friends actually call me on the phone to ask me how to spell a word they were having trouble with. The word was of, yeah. I'm working the IT help desk. Do you guys have any of those wireless internet cables? Blank stare ensued while I waited for her to understand the request. Then I said it's already plugged in. I worked at a cafe with white lights, crisp white china mugs. A woman ordered a dark roast coffee and a green tea to stay, and then when I slid them to her she looked Saint them and then back at me with big Bambi eyes. Which is which? Can you name all the digits of pi? Confused, I recited a couple of number before trailing off. A friend beside me piped up, claiming that he could indeed name every single digit. Few 2 minutes of him bullshitting his way through pi, making appropriate pauses to think or to do some quick mental math before continuing. All of this was done with the asker pointing her phone at him, convinced she's got the next viral hit. Needless to say, holding back my laughter was extremely difficult. That's easy. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. It just mix them around and repeat them a bunch. Not the stupidest thing someone has asked, but when they were asked to name an inanimate object, they looked around the electronics store they were in and said, I don't know, my finger. Like, dude, you picked the only animate object in the whole dang store. Work in retail. Guy comes in. He looks pretty average. Has a nice suit, nice glasses, well kept hair. Above average I guess. He's looking for a particular stock pot that the store carries and I bring him over to where they're kept. He begins to stare at the box. A deeply troubled look emerges slowly on his face as he places his hand on his chin. The box art depicts the pot in use, with some photoshopped water and a corn cob bobbing out of it. This is relevant. Trust me. After about 10 seconds of him staring perplexedly at the box I ask, "Anything else I can help you with?" He replies, sounding confused, "So, this thing can only be used to cook corn?" I stared blankly at him. Was he fricking with me? His vexed demeanor told me no. He was indeed concerned about the product's potentially limited use. I honestly have no idea how long I was speechless. It felt like minutes. I couldn't speak. No one is that dumb, right? He eventually says, "It's okay, I'll figure it out from here," and continued to gaze at the box in hopes of gleaning the answers to the troubles he had encountered. My 20-something daughter asked why we never see squirrel eggs. Us parent types responded that's because squirrels are mammals and don't lay eggs like birds do. To which he responded, "Then show me an infant squirrel breastfeeding squirrel." This led to a conversation that was much longer than needed to be. You're gonna have a rough time if she ever learns about a platypus. While working as a butcher, I showed a deli clerk how to break down a whole chicken into pieces. I showed her 2 breasts, 2 wings, 2 legs, 2 thighs. She looks at me and asks, "Which part does the turkey come from?"
Whoa.
Because I am a dwarf, I get a lot of hilarious ones. But one of my favorites was, "Do you need to get a smaller engine for your car?" I really wish I could have seen your internal process that led to that question. Lady. Surely, it's because being smaller means being lighter, making the engine give too much torque. Would always wheelie when you hit the gas from a stop. Not me, but an 8th grade foreign exchange student asked our 70-something-year-old, obese, grumpy math teacher if she was pregnant. She stared at him with a look on her face that said obviously not and you know that you little crap, and then the kid followed up with, "Well, because you are attractive enough," and everything. The whole class was silent. The teacher stared at him for a minute before turning off the overhead and gave us a short infomercial rundown on menopause followed by "So no, I am not pregnant." The whole time, even though she was talking to the class, she was staring at the kid while she talked about. That was an all-time record for most awkward math class in my book. He was trying to get in it. People visiting Alaska on a cruise would walk onto the dock, a dock protruding into the Pacific Ocean, then look up at the mountains and ask what elevation we were at. 1 foot. "Mom, you are standing on a dock which is at sea level." My experience on an Alaskan cruise had a lady complaining to the front desk that it was too cold outside for her kid to swim. I had a friend ask me why they aired the 10th anniversary memorial of 9/11 on the 11th. I asked him what he meant and he replied, "Why wouldn't they air it on the day it happened?" I again asked him WTF he was talking about. Again he responded, "Well, 9/11 happened on the 1st of September. Didn't it? The dumbass forgot what day 9/11 happened on." To this day, if I ever look down at my phone and see that the time is 9/11, I text him, "Never forget. Please never stop doing that to him." I dated a girl who thought butt stuff could get her pregnant by absorbing a cross. She also thought swallowing would make her pregnant. She must have thought you had Thor strength sperm.
Your team won
Not
the
me,
orb.
but it's such a dumb question I have to share. A classmate of mine in my sophomore year of high school asked my biology teacher something so dumb it's stuck with me for 10 years. She was clearly arguing with someone in the back of the class and my teacher finally stopped them and asked what was going on. Now this girl was known to everyone as a bit of a dunce, but this was astounding. She looked at my teacher with a smug butt smirk and said, "Can you settle this argument for us since you're a science teacher? A biologist doesn't study biology, right? These guys keep trying to tell me they do." My teacher went wide-eyed and had to leave the room for what felt like 5 minutes. This girl already said a lot of really stupid stuff in the 6 years I went to school with her, but this was the one that always stuck out to me. A girlfriend of a friend of mine asked, "I wonder what it was like before color." This chick thought the world was black and white, not film. I wear glasses and remember when I was 18 being asked by a friend if when I took them off everything was black and white. For some reason they thought that as your eyesight got worse your ability to see color also disappeared. The scene. Meeting some new people in a college class. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Love is Legally Blind. New classmate, don't you mean different name that sounds a little like mine? Me. Number. He thinks it's time to double down. Are you sure? Why not? Me. Because that's not what my parents named me. Like what? Who corrects someone on their own name? I have a somewhat unusual name. People misspell it or mispronounce it all the time, but this was special. An administrator at school mistook me for another Asian classmate and refused to believe me when I corrected him. Yeah, dude. I really wanted to attend this dumb orientation twice, so I snuck back in under a different name. Not asked, but my mom straight up said we should drive to Puerto Rico. So, that was interesting. Had a lady insist that the lights outside that you don't plug in and don't have batteries were not solar lights. She got furious when she asked 2 more employees who both said solar lights. She then described the solar panel on top of those decorative garden lights and demanded a manager, who also told her solar lights. You should have sold her the geothermal ones. You know, the ones with a spike 5 kilometers long. I worked in a sub shop for many years. I had a guy look at me and ask me how big a 12-inch sub is. I just looked at him and said 12 inches. He just nodded and said okay, like I had just imparted some new and secret knowledge on him. A woman asked me if Gorilla Glue was made from real gorillas. I laughed at first, but she was serious. She told me she was vegan and wouldn't use the product if it was made with real gorillas. I've said this one before, but I'm a submarine pilot and I give tours of a coral reef. This gets asked far more than I expected or ever wanted, but when we're sitting 100 feet down below and nothing but sand, people have asked, is that snow? Not really a question, more of a suggestion. Okay, so I'm a tall African American male, athletic build, and I like to wear peacoats. One night while leaving dinner I was walking to the car. A man was looking in the cab of his truck and the door was preventing me from opening the door to the passenger side of my friend's car. I said excuse me. He then offered me his wallet with his eyebrows raised. I looked at him in astonishment and said, I don't want your wallet. I want you to close your door. He did. I got in my friend's car, told them what happened. My friends now call me the Peacoat Bandit. Freaking Santa Barbara. Grandmother once was doing a crossword puzzle, turns to me and asks, what is Edgar Allan Poe's middle name? She asked so earnestly that it made me think that Edgar Allan Poe had another middle name. After I haltingly replied Allan, she realized she had answered her own question. We still bring it up occasionally. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.
3, 2, 1, fight!
Welcome to r/choosing beggars, where free is way too expensive. This next post is a web article written by someone named Gabrielle Peterson, and I genuinely can't believe that this person wrote this and then thought, yeah, this is totally appropriate. I'm gonna put this online. Commentary on work-life balance. Want to work 9 to 5? Good luck building a career. Our careers are a part of our lives, and try as we might, we can't always leave work at the office any more than we can leave home at home. I recently fired my first ever direct report. Although he was low energy, uninspired, and an awful speller, what ultimately led him to the axe was his insistence on boundaries. He would come into the office at 9 every morning, leave at 5, and be inaccessible anytime before and after. Regardless of deadlines or passion projects, his work
When did you realize your friends were actually fake friends? When I was babysitting her kids, things were going great. We would hang out all the time, have movie nights, and just talk and chill. But the second she no longer needed a babysitter was the second I got kicked to the curb. No explanation,
3,
not even a text
2,
back.
1,
Some people will act like your best friend until they no longer need you. They're lost though. Whenever we were supposed to hang out, something came up, and that something was hanging out with other mutual friends. Yes, my best friend in high school used to do this to me all the time. On Wednesday, I'd ask if she wanted to see a movie Friday night. She'd always say maybe. If I and kick on Friday. God, that pissed me off. When I was in school, all my friends and I did different A levels. Despite us all having different lessons to
Enemy
each other,
team
they
claimed
would
the
wait for
orb.
each other to go to lunch together. But they would always forget me. Like I'd come out and they wouldn't be there. So I'd have lunch by myself. And then they'd come back and tell me they thought I was with them. I was the only one they didn't wait for. I've only seen one of them since we left school. She had forgotten my name. So that sucked. When I traded in my truck for a smaller, more eco-friendly
Your team won the
communication
orb.
plummeted now that I can't haul furniture around, assist with moving as much, dispose of etc. When my phone got stolen and I lost their phone numbers, mine stayed the
Defeat.
same. But we just never
A
talked again.
glorious hunt,
When my
a
Apple
worthy
account
prey.
got compromised and I lost my backup when I changed phones, I lost all of my numbers. I haven't gotten a text or call from any of my friends since. That was 5 years ago. Oh no, I think I might have fake relatives. When they stopped contacting me when
The
I
art
stopped
of
drinking,
misdirection.
I feel this. Used to have countless friends. Went out all the time. Lost control of myself and quit. Friends stopped calling. Now I'm a weird eccentric who hangs out in the woods in all my free time. Things are better this way. I have a couple friends who stuck around and the girl of my dreams. That's all I need. When you stop going to the bar, you no longer exist to those who live that life. It messed with my head for a while, but I get it now. I flew out to support a friend going through a messy divorce. While I was there, she left me in the apartment to meet up with her boyfriend that I didn't know about. He turned out to have just been released from prison for manslaughter. Once she told me that, I told her that I didn't want to spend time with him, especially considering the circumstances of my visit. The next night, I woke up in the middle of the night to find him in the living room. She said that she thought it wouldn't matter since I was asleep. The next day, she invited her soon-to-be ex-husband over without telling me and then asked me to meditate their conversation once he got there. That conversation turned ugly fast, and she ended up storming out. He broke down and asked if I thought it was salvageable, and I told him that she had already moved on. Maybe not the best idea on my part, but at that point, she had shown me how vile of a person she is. When I went through a divorce and was down to $700 bucks most difficult period and weeded out all those who friended me for my generosity because I was well settled. Started over and had like 2 true good friends. 2 real friends is better than 100 fake friends. Hope you're doing well. I was invited to the Bachelorette party for one of the friends in this group. While at the party, I figured out that I was the only person not invited to the wedding. I had been invited to the party because they needed another person to chip in for expenses. What kind of human scum does that? It's amazing what people will do to
My
get what
friends
they want
here
because
can't
they
wait.
deserve a perfect
1,
wedding
fight.
experience. Apparently I didn't realize I was on a different tier of friendship with my so-called friend. My friend was getting married and I didn't get an invite, which was fine since her wedding was a destination wedding in a different country. I attended a sleepover party, which she hosted. There was about 9 girls there in total. They kept talking about the gay bachelorette party and then started
Your
showing
team
photos
won
of the
the
crazy
orb.
party. I realized I was the only one not invited. Made me feel kind of crummy. My friends from high school all unfollowed me when I graduated college. I'm the only one who no longer lives in our hometown. Consider that a badge of honor. Once high school ended, I heard about all the rumors they made up about me. After my divorce, we were
Enemy
couples,
team
friends, not
claimed the
individuals.
orb.
My wife and I separated and she got the majority of our friends. Almost nobody checked in on me to see how I was doing. Then we decided to work it out and stay together, and now there's a whole list of people's birthdays I don't have to remember. That's an inspiring sentence. Now there's a whole list of people's birthdays I don't have to remember. Thanks. This was also when I realized who were my friends and who weren't. We were supposed to go to a tour
Enemy
and we
team
saved our
claimed
money
the
and
orb.
fake friends told me they had to cancel the plan because ticket prices got too high. Told me to wait a few days to get my money back. Real friends asked me why I bailed on them, and were worried that I had an emergency. Turns out my
Death
fake
vortex
friends didn't want me to
incoming.
come and instead would use my money for their booze and told everyone else that I bailed out and took my money back so everyone else would give more for their booze allowance. That friendship ended and I
Round
also learned
lost.
my fake friends were alcoholics and weren't strangers to effing over people to get what they want. Today one of them is alive. Their alcoholism ruined their lives and some even died from it. One friend stopped replying to my texts right after we graduated from college, like the same week we graduated. So, I was pretty much just a study buddy that they kept close to keep me helping them. This is basically all of the friends I made at various points in college. As soon as we don't see each other 3x a week, they fade away. I get there busy, but I didn't realize making lasting friendships as an adult would be so difficult. It is so hard to make friends as an adult. I moved to a new city about a year and a half ago and still have 0 friends. This one girl who is trying to be friends with me, but only because she wants someone to emotionally love on. Other than that, I've had a couple friend dates to meet people and they usually just stop texting back. I feel like most adults already have their friend
Enemy
group,
team
and it
claimed
is
the
almost
orb.
impossible to get into those. Same thing happened to me. Was friends with so many people during college in the last 3 weeks with an unpaid work placement which we had to go back to the school to hand in our paperwork. Not one of them spoke to me or would even answer me if I said something to them. It became clear that I was only valuable to them when I was helping them. Class awards set me down as most willing to help classmates. Most willing to help classmates. This is literally a label which gets a lot of friends
Your
because it
team
always
claimed
attracts
the
people.
orb.
It can be a problem because you are always questioning every person you befriend. It is almost like you have to be extra careful because you are kind of helpful. Such is the world we are in now. The only positive of this is that you can quickly identify fake friends because they drift away without giving a ref while the real ones stay.
Round 1.
Best friend.
The
I'll call
storm's
her
on our
Mary.
side.
Had kids the same age as mine. We got together for play dates pretty often and our kids would sleep over at each other's houses for weekends. I liked Mary. We would often visit and talk while our kids were playing. One weekend, her kids had stayed at my house. The older one called her mom to see when she was coming to pick her up. I was in the room, and the kid put the phone on speaker for some reason. Mary told the kid what time she would be there and added, "You had better be waiting outside. If I have to go in and
3,
spend the next
2,
hour
1,
talking
fight.
to Roberta, I'm going to be really pissed." We didn't spend much time together after that. I think this is especially time. Mom friends are hard enough to find. Then to realize that they didn't even want to hang with you. And because your kiddos are friends, you don't necessarily want to show that up by calling the fake mom friend out. I tried to have mom friends, but it failed 3 times. And that was enough for me. I still have one. Even though our kids are grown, I remember meeting her and just feeling so comforting. So bush. A lot of kindness and compassion. She's the kind of friend that you can lose contact with
Your
for a
team
while.
won the
Then pick
orb.
up again as if no time has gone by. Our 4 kids, to hers and to mine, have an apartment together. They're in college. It was something the kids put together on their own and they are doing really well. This was quite a few years ago. My ex and I were really friendly with another couple. Did a ton of stuff together. Then they moved. Not far. And fairly shortly after my
Enemy
ex
team
and I
claimed
separated,
the orb.
they hung out with me for a few months but then started calling. A few years later, I ran into both of them at a race, an ultra-marathon, and they both pretended like they didn't know me. That was actually a really painful moment. I just posted something simple. When I was married, we were in a friend group with 3 other
Shit.
couples on the street. My ex cheated and we divorced. The group kept inviting both of us to the same events because they didn't want to pick sides. I moved out of the neighborhood and realized they were
The
proximity
death
friends.
vortex is
Not real
incoming.
friends.
Enemy team won
That
the
hurt
orb.
a lot. I've actually come to accept that proximity friends are still a type of friend. A friend for life is a rare thing. It's okay that not every friend you ever make will last forever. Some friends will only be with you because they don't want to be alone. As soon as something better comes along, you become less important. The group made plans to meet and hang out. I was getting ready in the salon.
Round
A couple
lost.
of friends had to back out for some reason. The other friend then made excuses of his own. And I could tell. I tried cajoling him and offer ways for him to go, but he basically decided to cancel the entire group meetup. It was my birthday. Same thing happened to me on my 21st birthday. All my friends made up excuses why they couldn't come. Then the 3 friends that did met some guys and we went back to their house and awkwardly sat around. Happened again for my 25th birthday. I had moved across the country and found new friends, but they all bailed at the
3,
last minute. I
2,
called my
1,
roommate at the
fight.
time who came out when he got off work, and he called some of his friends who came out and I had the best night ever. Those guys are now my real friends, and I married them. This is
No.
After you cut ties with them, my best friend since 5th grade invited me to his wedding as a guest. I expected to be a groomsman, since we basically stayed the night at each other's houses every weekend all through high school, and I set him up with his wife. We were still close for long-distance friends prior to moving to college. I'd come visit and spend the weekend with him and some mutual friends a few times a year. We did fantasy football and texted pretty frequently. At the wedding, the bride and groom each had about 8 people in their parties. The groom had his brother and 7 friends. I didn't make the top 7. I knew pretty much everyone on the bride's side but only knew half of the guys up there with the groom. That opened my eyes a bit. I took a step back and analyzed our friendship after that. Realized I always texted first or made plans. Always visited him but he never visited me, etc. He basically put in no effort. So I stopped texting for a while, as a test, and I haven't heard from him since. It's been about 11 years. Preach. Absolute preach. It's a feeling. I was recently excluded from a party where my friends got on a bus to go out of town. The friend who had the party said that they didn't
So
invite
cold
me
as
because there
hell.
was not enough space on the bus. I'd rather he told me the truth as to why I wasn't invited in the first place. There were about 70 people on the bus. I mean, at that point, if you're not making the top 70, I think you can say they are not your friends, fake or otherwise. I was
You'll make
always
a
on that
fine
spectrum
ally.
as well. I've had 4 core groups of friends over the years. First was a junior high and high school, and I would frequently learn about things they had done or parties they'd had that I wasn't invited to for whatever reason. 2 years after graduation, I just wasn't invited to hang out anymore. College, I had a new core group, or really 2. But during the summer I was left out when they would all get together and do activities we all did during the school year. I never understood why I was left out. Then after graduating I drifted away. Got another group of friends and same story. I don't blame any of them though. I'm obviously the common denominator and I have my thoughts on what's wrong with me that people don't think to have me around. Or perhaps don't want me around. But I'm still trying to really figure it out. Maybe if I fix it I can finally have some long-term friends. But I'm getting older, have kids, and not really hopeful that's going to happen. The worst is when people try to justify it by saying
My
we did
friends
not
here
invite
can't
you.
wait.
Everyone was welcome to come along. You deliberately asked everyone
3,
except me.
2,
When I
1,
realized
fight.
literally just being in the same room as that person made me miserable. It's because the person was extremely self-conscious, to the point that they would overcompensate by putting others down every little chance they had to make themselves feel above. I kept wondering why they would keep throwing me under the bus for no reason. Like we had been friends for years. Why would they treat me like this? It took me years to figure out exactly how bad of a
Your
friend they
team
were.
claimed
No
the
matter
orb.
how hard they pretend not to be. It took me an entire year of ghosting to stop being friends with that person. Because they loved putting me down so much they wouldn't stop calling me, texting me, trying to contact me for a year with no responses because they could not understand how someone could possibly want to stop hanging out with them because they are so perfect. When my longtime friend called me and said, hey, can you hang out? No one else can. Finding out they have an inner circle group chat
Round
but I'm the
1.
only one not in it. Something similar happened to me. We were all set to go enjoy music at a local establishment. I talked to multiple people from the group, confirming meeting time. I got there and no one else was there. Eventually they all showed up together. Found out they had been out all day together shopping, drinking, and I was the only one not clued into that part. I had been looking forward to the night but ended up feeling lower than I had ever felt. Knowing me, I would have slinked away like a ghost as soon as I realized and probably never talked to them again.
3,
Wouldn't be the
2,
first time.
1,
Same.
fight.
I found out that they had 2 groups, one with me and one without. They never used the one with me though. This is the worst feeling. When I was in my mid-20s, I worked a job where 4 of us had the same position. The 4 of us did everything together. Then we made a mistake, and I apologized for it. But one of them just could not seem to forgive me, and aggressively isolated me from the group. I remember how shy I was to discover that they had a whole group chat that I wasn't included in, and had done all these social things without me. I've always been lucky to have a lot of friends, and I figured out after a while that these people weren't going to be it for me. So I for my own benefit and health.
This
It
is
was
most
treated like a
popping off.
selfish piece of for doing so. The next month, since you'd not one of them checked in to see how I was doing. But instead, my high school best friend started sleeping with my ex-high school girlfriend. I was with her for 5 years and actually thought I was going to marry her at one point. Who dumped me for doing coke and is now an honorary member of the group I was cast out of, replaced with the person who partially fueled my substance abuse. Who dumped me for substance abuse by the group that didn't like me stopping my coke addiction and about 1,000 pounds of dead weight. But it was an eye-opener to say the least. I was at a party, really depressed after a bad breakup and got drunk. My abusive ex showed up, caught me somewhere alone and hit me. I begged several friends for help since I was too drunk to drive home alone and they ignored me. My ex-best friend was there, completely sober and refused to drive home with me because she didn't believe I would do that. There's no Uber or anything in my country BTW. The whole thing escalated. One guy I didn't know ended up finding me alone in a field crying and throwing up. Brought me back to the house, pulled the bed out of blankets for me and sat guard all night to make sure my ex wouldn't do anything again. What happened after that? Did you find any new friends? Did you get your ex to leave you alone? When I realized I was the one always calling, then I stopped and friends disappeared. I only have one exception to this rule as I know my friend is a active texter and he's got a lot on his mind at all times.
Dang, this Ashka Gizmo is popping off, bro.
Depression and such. I check in on him regularly and I don't mind him being a wall for a while. He's come through for me and he's a good man.
I'll bring
the rest
the
can
lightning.
F off.
The spear
I am that
is the
kind
way.
of person. And you are a good friend. I feel you on this one. When you try to open up and try to share a genuine conversation about something going on in your life and all they can do is crack jokes and try to get you to go out drinking with them, made me realize how surface level many friendships really are. Then you have the opposite of that. 3 guys I've known since I was a freshman in high school, been friends for over 15 years, have stayed in touch through all of us getting married, having kids, and moving to completely separate areas or the country. Yet whenever we're within an hour of each other we always make a point to get breakfast and catch up. This usually turns into 3+ hour conversations. This may only happen once or twice a year, but I consider those guys my best friends. That's real friendship and I'm fortunate to have them. When they ghosted me after 17 years of close friendship, I still have no idea what I did wrong. And for extra salt in the wound, it was right after I spent a week eating instant noodles because I donated every cent I had to one of them for her cancer treatment GoFundMe. Hurt more than any relationship breakup. Is there a GoFundMe option? They would invite each other to places in front of me and not include me in the slightest. When I ditched them they didn't know how to take it. Lol. Like I suspect for a lot of people, getting divorced was a real eye-opener. I started with a core group of close friends who had all met in our late teens, early 20s and one of them introduced me to the woman who I would ultimately marry. Well into our 40s they were what I considered to be my family, but when the divorce happened things spiraled. My best friend stuck with me, but his wife was the one who orchestrated things in our group and she was best friends with my ex. I was expecting the two of them to insulate for a while and I knew it was painful for my ex to be around me. So it was no surprise when I stopped getting invitations to cookouts etc. But then I noticed that the other members of the group were also avoiding ignoring me. I'd see on Facebook that one of them came into my town to go to a concert for a band that they knew I liked and hadn't so much as texted. Birthdays rolled around and nobody would call. When my parents both died within a few months of each other and not a one of them reached out, I knew where I stood. My best friend needs to get credit though. Alone from all of them he made a consistent effort to stay in touch and see me regularly. He was there when my parents died and through everything else even though his wife clearly disapproved. I think finally after this nonsense had been going on for several years he told her how ridiculous it all seemed and that entire friend group tried to reconcile. I made it clear right from the start that there was no guarantee that I'd ever find space for them in my life again. This is all very apropos right now because they are having their first big post-COVID party in a couple weeks and I'm invited. People are coming in from all over the country and the only one I give a shit about seeing is my buddy. I stopped smoking weed and they stopped coming round. This is a lesson that every smoker learns after a while. Some friends are only friends.
That's a nice skill though.
A good rule of thumb is to do things together where you're not smoking. If that works then you are probably real friends and not just together for smoking. Peoples of Reddit, when did you first realize that someone close to you is racist or a horrible person? My Asian parents are pretty xenophobic. They call black people Heligui, which is basically black demon. I learned the lexicon and was talking to my uncle and mentioned this Heligui. It's just what I started to call black people. I didn't know what it really meant. My uncle told me what it meant and corrected my label to Heliren or black person. OMG, this is my worst fear. I'm half Chinese and I don't know if I picked up something like that from my mom, who is very xenophobic. When I was a little girl watching Static Shock, my uncle walked into my room, looked at the TV and said, "Don't watch that show, it's for N-ers." I ask because I was recently invited to a family dinner where close family friends would also be attending. Someone I knew for most of my teenage years was there and we chatted to catch up on things. During the course of our conversation, the topic of racial profiling came up and this person straight up said the all blacks are N and most likely did it anyways in front of quite a few people. I can honestly say, I was in shock. I've never knew this person to be this way and didn't know how to react to such a comment. Nor have I ever encountered someone so open about. I think from the awkward silence that followed, she realized her mistake, but I just excused myself from the conversation and avoided her. What made this even more awkward was her defense of "I have black friends so I'm not xenophobic" argument after she got called out on it. I asked her to pass something to me and she threw it on the floor and told me to go fetch. I was done looking past her snide backhanded jokes. I was so over it at this point. When my, now deceased, grandfather took his 3 grandsons aside and promised us extra money in the will for any of us who married a Japanese woman. We are all white, but grandfather said that Japanese women made better wives. Knew someone who told me that he preferred dating Asian women because they are the most loyal. I am an Asian woman and he said this to my face. LOL. I'm white and my sister was dating a black guy a few years ago. My dad and I were driving one day and we passed my sister's boyfriend walking down the road and I said, "Oh, hey, there's sister's boyfriend," and my dad said, "How can you be sure? They all look alike." My dad also referred to my Filipino boyfriend at the time as wonton. The wonton thing is so weird, it's like calling a white person pot roast or spaghetti. Everyone's saying cracker. Go look that up. It doesn't mean what you think. I remember when I was younger I really adored my uncle. He'd make up crazy stories to entertain my cousins and I always enjoyed when they'd come to visit cause he'd play with us all the time. Fast forward to 15 years old and all he talks about is politics and crap about how the world is turning upside down cause no one believes in God. He told my mom she should discipline my nephews better more. They're pretty rowdy, cause she wouldn't want them to turn out like all the black kids who don't have good influences in their lives. Girls shouldn't wear shorts even though it's freaking 95 degrees outside. Also, gays are ruining everyone's life and careers. He's one of those annoying I'm being PC kind of jackasses. My mom pulled me aside and told me to not be so rude and sarcastic to him. Apparently he's always been like this and it's something my family puts up with for my aunt's sake. My super nice and conservative grandma smiles when I'm a jerk to him. It's beautiful. It's hard to be the jerk when dealing with a person like that. No matter what you do, you're the better person. He'd been a friend since elementary school. He'd always kind of been in butthole and not many people liked him. Example, in our Boy Scout troop. In high school he really began making xenophobic and gender-biased remarks. And God did he love talking about all the girls he hooked up, while cheating on his girlfriend were his favorite ones to tell me about. I look back and I don't think I know anyone who was as good as taking advantage of girls' insecurities as well as him. I realized he was a piece of crap, and it increasingly made me uncomfortable. But we'd just been friends for so long, and fortunately didn't have too many overlapping friends. We went to different colleges and increasingly had less contact. He hits me up now every few months but I just ignore him. A person like that just brings no joy to your life. I have several instances that come to mind, but one that sticks out to me a lot is a time my parents told me to organize the kitchen cabinets, go through the plastic tubs and bowls and sort them and such. I was a young teenager, probably a little peeved about having to organize all this crap, and I was also bad at organizing. So I didn't do a fantastic job. My dad walks in and sees that I'm doing a crappy job, and he loses it. He starts yelling at me about how I always half-butt everything. I'm lazy, and then shouts, "You remind me of the crack NS I have to deal with at work," and that really crushed me. My dad is a police officer, and still is today. His racism and overall bigotry deeply concern me given his career. This specific instance of racism wasn't nearly the worst I had seen from him or other family members, but it sticks out because I guess that's when I realized I could no longer keep making excuses in my mind in order to uphold this image of the person I wish my dad was. This is deep and personal and weird because this is my first post on Reddit, but nobody will likely read this anyway. Oh well. I read it. I learned what a monster a very close friend was when he was arrested for child pornography and weapons charges. I was in his wedding. I had no idea how fricked up he is. When my mom said that she didn't want me to marry a person of color because she didn't want coarse-haired grandkids, she was always like, "How would you fall in love with a black person?" I could never convince her. Read a Facebook comment from my usually sweet granddad lamenting that he can't use the N-word anymore. He didn't censor it though. It was at the height of the whole Chick-fil-A being anti-gay marriage controversy. I was in the car with my grandparents and they casually mentioned how they should eat dead because letting gays get married ruins it for everyone else. Never saw them the same way after that. Hey, they are eating vanilla cake and that's a different flavor than my chocolate cake. They ruined my cake. I'm white. My folks are white. I was dating a guy from Nicaragua in my late teens and brought him home to meet the fam. After he left, I turned to mom and said, "Well, what do you think?" She sniffed and gave me her response. "At least he's not black." When my grandmother adamantly argued that black people were happier and better off during segregation. Oh, and my family way back in the past owned plantations, but we were, of course, the good slave owners. I roll. To clarify why it was so surprising to me, she's never used the N-word or outwardly seemed like a xenophobic person, which is why I was so shocked that she'd have these opinions so ingrained into her personal beliefs. About 15 years ago, I used to work with an older gentleman and our company sponsored a bowling tournament. Him and I got drawn as partners and we had a great time. He was the sweetest, nicest man ever. He was Caucasian. I'm Latino. We often chatted in the coffee room or met for lunch on occasion even though we were 20 years or so in age difference. We formed a pickup soccer team and him and his son joined. Again, the sweetest, nicest people ever. Both him and his son. The type that would give you the shirt off their backs. After I left that job, about 6 years ago, we found each other on Facebook, and it revealed what a sectarian he really was. The Obama presidency really revealed this, and Trump just cemented it. His friends list is an echo chamber that cheers on and justifies every xenophobic post he makes. It was really disappointing. The 2016 election really brought it out of a lot of people. My grandma told me not to hang out with my Asian friend because she believes Asian guys hit girls. I clearly didn't listen to her because I'm currently friends with 3 Asian guys. What she said still infuriates me to this day though. A guy I used to be friends with was homophobic as heck. I tried to get him to accept the fact that there's nothing wrong with people being attracted to the same gender. His response was, "You can give them respect but they're all going to heck anyway." I stopped being friends with him. Good, I think he might be going to heck for damning 10% of mankind. The moment they were showing me my old playroom and it was filled with guns, weapons, I think there was a straight up RPG hung on the wall, and he looked at me and said, "This is for when the dang, insert race here, start to take over my freaking country." That's some Far Cry 5 crap, dude. My husband's aunt has lived in South Carolina for 20 years and boy does it show. She told us a story once about how she got lost while driving and realized she needed to ask for directions. She said, "So then I see this black church, and people were coming and going out of the church, and I thought to myself, well, they can't all be bad. They're in church," like it was some hypothesis she was forming based on an educated guess. Dang it, the one time I see my home state mentioned and it is in the context of racism. I knew that my dad was xenophobic when he informed 14-year-old me that if I ever dated a black guy he would never speak to me again. Gender biased when he said that women shouldn't be in any position of leadership because of PMS. Xenophobic when the all people who look even vaguely birth control makes women ugly, crazy, suicidal, etc. PMS makes women into she-hulks. It's so stupid and yet they have a loyal readership. My uncle, some gems. In reference to black people crossing the street, they should have to wear vests or lights or something so I can see them. We have a small Islamic center half a block away from us. Anytime anyone drives poorly around that specific intersection, he always says something along the lines of they're probably one of those refugees going to bang their heads against the ground. He was dropping me off at school and looked over to the bus driver. Oh. So your bus driver is a woman? Yeah, are you sure she's qualified for that job? Actually, anytime anyone is a bad driver, they are either a woman or a refugee. Anytime anyone tries to save money on anything or says something is too expensive, he calls them Jewy. We live on a busy street. Lots of people walk. He would only commentate on the people who were either overweight, indigenous people, in Muslim attire or black. He's also on record as saying fat people are nice people. You shouldn't be talking to them, despite being at least 100 pounds overweight. When I told him I wanted to be a software engineer, he asked if I wanted to go into something I was better suited for, like a nurse or a teacher. Why would I want to be a nurse? Well, you could meet a nice doctor. We went to my aunt's wedding. She just so happened to be getting married to her wonderful girlfriend of 5 years. Before the wedding, he grumbled about how it wasn't proper. After, he said it was nice, I guess. I thought he made a breakthrough. By the next day, he was back to grumbling about how it wasn't proper. He was also a fan of Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines. I knew it. When I introduced my Hispanic girlfriend to my parents, Dad got visibly unhappy when he saw her and pulled me aside to tell me that this better be a freaking joke. This was pretty shocking, considering he had never seemed to dislike Hispanics and acted friendly enough to a neighboring Mexican family when I was growing up. Luckily I had already moved out, so I can avoid speaking to him. Most of the communicating we do is through my mother, which is how he told me that he wouldn't be coming to our wedding if I were to marry her. He wouldn't be coming to our wedding. Fantastic. One less thing to stress out about. My brother started dating a girl who was white but had a very black sounding name. So before anyone in the family had met
No shit.
my cousins, a few of my aunts and I were sitting in the yard.
I just
my aunts asked
went
what her name was.
blind.
My cousin tells her and there's this awkward silence. Then my cousin says she's white though. My other aunt breathes a sigh of relief and says, oh good. Yeah, we can't be having any of that. I was so shocked because out of all of my family members she's always been the kindest, warmest person. I felt like I had been slapped across the face. It was so unexpected. More, I wouldn't trust a black child, not as much as a white one. Those racial slurs should stay on their side of town. These are all different people. I have nothing to do with any of them. At first I thought you meant they literally said racial slurs. Right after the 2012 election, my husband's mom and my mom were over to see us and our baby. Making conversation, we were talking about the election and I asked my mother-in-law, did you vote for Obama? And her answer was, no way, I'd never vote for a black guy. I knew she was Southern, but she'd been up north 25 plus years and I had known her 7 years already. When she left I asked my husband, is your mom xenophobic? And he answered, oh yeah, like it was common knowledge. When my brother's mother-in-law told my mom after dinner at a restaurant, this town isn't so bad. There aren't any Puerto Ricans. I mean Mexicans, as though that changes things. She also said the black people in conversation the last time I saw her. When an old co-worker told me gay people were gross and said AIDS was caused by dongs being near fecal matter. What is wrong with people? A couple years ago, I was talking to an old friend who said that he lost respect for a mutual friend when he realized that she supported the LGBT community. He also bragged about bullying a gay kid at school. Little did he know that I myself am bi. I idolized my cousin growing up. He was an infantry soldier prior 9/11 and during the Iraq War was deployed a number of times. I always talked about him and excited every time he came home. Grew up thinking he was a great person. husband, and father. Wasn't until I went on a long visit to his home I realized how horrible he was. He told me stories of his platoon and how he would make fun and encourage soldiers who were suicidal. He pushed soldiers to a breaking point if they were considered fat, would give the local tribes a hard time when he was deployed. And yeah, he was xenophobic, but that runs in the family, it didn't surprise me. Also, he had a kid from his first marriage that he wouldn't acknowledge unless it was his year where he claimed the kid in his taxes. Treated the kid like crap whenever he saw him. Kid was a great baseball player. Saw one of his games, he was amazing. But yet my cousin would tell him all the flaws he saw and how he wouldn't add up to anything. I lost all respect to my cousin once I realized the kid didn't have our last name. When I asked why,
Oh shit, I forgot we don't have a either.
our last name when he was a baby. I was told his now wife had him ask his ex to change it because only current wife kids were allowed to have our last name, and she didn't want to have the bastard to have it. No longer talked to my cousin and his other wife. Was very heartbroken when I realized how wrong I was growing up on idolizing someone so heartless. Just had a co-worker come up to me not too long ago and go on a rant about the differences between black people and them, and why one of our black co-workers was one of the good ones. I went straight to HR. Man, I wish I worked with Chris Rock. I started noticing that whenever my dad, a police officer, was asked about work, he would identify which minorities are particularly troublesome right now. Relative. So, how's work going? My dad. It's the Indians right now. Good to hear we are in good hands. Did not mean to sound condescending sarcastic in order to offend you. Just bothers me that although the law judiciary system is meant to be just and not blinded by parameters such as race, gender, etc., the actors of the system will have their biases and prejudices highlighted by your anecdote. A guy we hung out with used to play these hilarious songs on his guitar, singing about how we're gonna send them all back to Africa, and we thought it was really funny. He was really committed to the act too. He worked at this meat processing factory which played German propaganda songs throughout the day and had a Confederate flag hanging on his wall and everything. Such great commitment to an obvious joke. Haha. When my dad went on a rant about how Mexicans really do violate people more because of their culture. Also, all women makeup violation lies to ruin men. Trump really brought the worst out of him. I haven't been able to look at him the same since. So debauchery is a real and serious problem, but only when committed by Mexicans. I'm Chinese and you know how older Chinese people can go a bit far. My cousin got a black boyfriend, and when my grandma told me, she had a bit of laughter. I love my grandma, but she can be a bit xenophobic sometimes. She has gotten better though. She loves my cousin's boyfriend, probably because he is the best guy in the world. My boyfriend is Chinese and his dad is awful. His dad once told him, if you are going to just play around and frick, then frick an American girl. When you decide to settle down, find a Chinese girl. When grandma threatened to shoot my dad after telling us about how she threatened to beat her teenage nephew with firewood and disowned her brother for swearing. Later I learned she didn't care for Asian people because to her they're all Japanese and therefore responsible for all the atrocities committed by the Japanese during World War II. Get to go see her for Easter. I had a really wicked pushdagger. My aunt saw it and blurted, "Wow, let me see that in." Get her. I was 17. I told her not to use that word. She said it's fine. I have black friends, so I started calling her C. It's okay. Some of my best friends are girls. My mom realized that my great-grandma, her grandmother-in-law, was xenophobic when they told her they were adopting a child, and she said just don't get a black one. GMIL's brother was also in the KKK. When I was much younger, my dad and I walked past an Asian woman talking on the phone. He proceeded to mock the Chinese language by saying random gibberish. I didn't laugh. Another time my dad received a phone call from an uncle who recently converted to Islam. I overheard him say, "Oh, so you're a terrorist now?" It's a joke. My mum is Muslim. Recently, I revealed more about my social life to him and said that a close friend of mine is from China. He said I knew it and, again, mocked the language. I responded with a disappointed, straight face. I was watching TV with my dad and Annie came on. There was a scene that featured the Rockettes. The film took place in the 30s, so they were all white. And my dad commented, "They're all black now." No, Dad. Not even close.
I think I'm playing the
No dad. Not even
Shanria.
close. I think there's 3 black ones ATM. I have a really close friend.
That would be a
Kind of a mother
compliment if you
figure to
thought I
me.
was playing the
I've been
Shanria,
friends
because
with
I'm
her
not
for
that
over
good.
20 years. A couple of months ago, we were in a lineup at the IKEA cafeteria.
I'm playing the
A woman and
Raygun,
her husband got in line
the
behind
trash
us.
character in the
The woman
game.
had
I
just
mean the
got
trash
her
player
scooter
in
and
the
was
matches
really
me.
uncomfortable with using it. She was trying to back up and hit the little divider poles and she looked really embarrassed. My friend and I smiled at her and made small talk to help her feel comfortable. She and her husband had grateful looks on their face. I felt good about how nice my friend and I were. A few minutes later, we were seated, and the woman scooted by with
Dang.
her husband. They both smiled
Can't even
at
touch
us.
any one of
After
these
they went
suckers.
past, my friend said, in the most acidic, cruel voice I'd ever heard, I hope that bee is actually handicapped and isn't just a fat, lazy frick. I was shocked to my core. I did say something back to her about how you can't tell if someone is handicapped just by looking at them. I've pulled back quite a bit from her since that day. She doesn't know why. I feel badly because she is older and kind of lonely. But man, what a freaking cruel thing to say. It was hate-filled. I was laid up for a while recovering from chemo and a few surgeries. I had to use those scooters at Walmart and other
No.
stores. You would not believe the nasty looks you get
They
from
are all
people.
over the map.
Everyone assumes you're just being lazy. On my 18th birthday, I went with my grandma gambling in the Native American reservations. We were on our way and were stopped at customs. My grandma proceeded to say that we would not be stopped because we are white. Then proceeded to tell me a story about the Mexicans and used the term the crazy Mexicans. After that experience, more and more things would slip out of her brain. For example, they just love working in the fields in the sun. As I read it now, I'm just shaking my head because I could sit here and type all day about our old Timmy xenophobic ideas. When my grandmom said that all the crime in her city was caused by the Native Americans, in front of my siblings and I, who are Métis, I make sure to call her out on all that crap now. Yep, at 4.3% of the population, I don't think that Canada's indigenous peoples are numerous enough to be responsible for all the crime. Wednesday, my mom and I have a very strained relationship despite, all because of LOL, us living together. I was describing our latest blow up during a therapy session. As the conversation went on, my therapist stopped me mid-sentence and said, Jimmy Potter, that's abuse. She is abusing you. And it all clicked. Her treatment of me, the way my anxiety and depression manifests itself, how I act in a relationship, everything that I was confused about and thought that I was the cause of all these problems were not my fault. Of course, I have some responsibility in
Unlucky.
the situation, but finally have a trained professional say, you're not wrong here. She is. And that's how I realized my mom is a mentally and financially abusive to me, and only me. She adores my sister. Please see my post history. You might be me.
I gotta grab
Juicy
some
sister.
snack.
Taking all my money or trying to still anyway. Say
I only had friends because I paid them, and telling my boyfriend
I was a prostitute. I hope you can leave soon. Was with a group of friends and randomly started talking about flat earth believers. One of our friends started saying that he was one of them and we all laughed. He started talking about how spherical earth was just a theory and how nothing could be proven, and the rest of us looked around at each other with a no way, this can't be real look. He was dead serious. We collectively started to talk about gravity and northern southern hemispheres and time and day night in different time zones. He wouldn't budge. He directed us to watch YouTube videos about how society is being brainwashed about the earth and how there are new continents below Antarctica that they don't want us to find. Sad. My so's mother, her topic of concern as to why we shouldn't be together was, think about it, insert so's name. She's a short Mexican. How would you feel if you had a son that was short? Man, that's got layers of prejudice. I hope all of your children are short and beautiful. When I told my grandmother and my great-aunt I was pregnant by my ex and he wasn't in the picture, no hard feelings, he just wasn't ready to be a dad. My great-aunt told me you should have expected this, but at least you picked a white Hispanic, he's Cuban and Puerto Rican. I just walked away. My grandma didn't say anything, but she didn't disagree with her sister either. As a Puerto Rican man, you'd be surprised by the amount of times I've heard, oh, you Puerto Rican men are trouble, basically alluding that because I'm a Puerto Rican man, that I am a man ho. If you are new to the channel,
Bruh.
you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.
Keep your weapon and your wits.
It's time to spin the wins. 3, 2, 1, fight.
Bye for now. Men of Reddit who had an uncomfortable encounter with a creepy woman. What is your story? I tried Tinder for the first time after a long toxic relationship when I was around 23 or something. I matched with a girl who I clicked with. We wrote for
My mouse
about
is
2
too
weeks or
fast for
something
some
until
reason.
She decided we should meet. I was like, alright, it may be fun. That same night I woke up from her calling me around 2 in the morning and said she was going to be outside my house.
My
in
mouse
10
is too
minutes.
fast.
I thought it was pretty weird to be honest, but the thought of being close to someone would actually be pretty nice.
What the
She
hell?
parks her car outside my house and when she gets out it's not the girl in the pictures on Tinder. She's much bigger and have a different hair color. I guess we are all a little shallow to an extent and
No,
you
it's too
shouldn't rate
slow.
people by appearance, but this wasn't what I was expecting at all. She
Brain
basically
is
just
fine.
shoved me to get inside and she was horrible, vulgar, annoying, and the profanity she used was crazy. We sat in my sofa and she talked crap about her friends and family, and after a while she wanted to move closer and closer and I just got up and made an excuse that I needed to use the bathroom. When I got out she was already naked in my bed and wanted to cuddle.
3,
I said I was
2,
very tired and had a
1,
headache.
fight.
I just laid on the edge of the bed all night with my eyes wide open. After a while she snored. When dawn finally arrived I set my alarm clock and woke her up saying I needed to get to work. This was a Saturday so it was a lie and I think she knew. She was pee and demanded breakfast, which she got. I told her I needed to go and she said I can stay until you get home, and after that I just told her to get out. I actually went inside my car and drove to work and she followed me the whole way. I got out, went inside the empty office and waited until she left.
You guys saw
I
that
unmatched
lag,
her and blocked her number.
that glitch?
Never heard from her after that. My friends love this story, but I really wish it was fake. Some years ago I was out at a nightclub with some work colleagues. We had left the office Christmas party and ended up there. While on the dance floor we were all watching this very drunk woman making her way around the club, groping and trying to kiss every guy. She eventually made her way to me and grabbed me from behind very tightly, grinding herself down my back. A female colleague who was opposite me was now laughing hysterically while I tried in vain to get her off me. After a minute of struggling I just grabbed her arms and forced her off me, then stepped off the dance floor. I was expecting some kind of backlash, but instead she just shrugged her shoulders and moved on to the next guy. If it was a guy going around groping women he'd have been thrown out by the bouncers. Instead she was left to continue harassing men without consequence. About 5 years ago, I got on a nearly empty train at the end of the day to travel home from work. I sat down and started reading on Reddit. As soon as the train departed, a woman appeared next to me who tried to get to my phone, accusing me of trying to film her, which I had not done. I had not even noticed her presence on the train before she was standing next to me screaming at me. She was highly aggressive. When she finally left, I felt the need to go sit somewhere else, so I went to the next carriage. A few minutes later, she appeared again with the train conductor, who wanted my side of the story. After showing the conductor I had no images of her in my phone, she tried to calm the woman down. No luck. So at the next station, another conductor came to me and I had to show the contents of my phone again. I chose to cooperate with the train staff to get them to get rid of this crazy woman. They still were not able to calm the woman down, as the train was due to arrive at the airport soon, where the train terminated, and I would need to change to another train. They saw no other option but to call ahead for the airport police. The woman demanded the police be involved, so they had to. Full stop. When the train arrived and all other passengers got off, the airport police came on the train and I had to tell my story again and show my phone again. I managed to convince them also I had not made any images of the crazy woman, and they said I could go. They asked if I wanted to file charges against that woman, and for a moment I was thinking of doing that. However, as I was really stressed out at this point and just wanted to go home, I just requested that they held her there until my next train had left, to make sure she could not go after me again as I traveled the last 15 minutes home on the second train. I'm Scottish and wore a kilt to a wedding in England. Big mistake. I'm no Jamie Fraser but spent the night fending off drunk Karens who were super interested in finding out if I was a true Scotsman. That's why Scotsmen carry a grenade launcher. I went to a bar with some friends. Somehow, this woman discovered that I was gay and thought that it was okay to try to pull my pants toward her to look at my dong, because you don't want to do anything anywhere yes. Vile woman. OMG what a creep. I've told this story a million times already, but basically the TLDR is in college there was a girl who was into me and I wasn't into her. Went to a party, got really drunk and went and passed out in the host's guest room. Woke up in the wee hours with that girl laying in bed with me giving me a pandy. At the time I wasn't really creeped out, more just annoyed and yelled at her for being a crazy freak and got up and walked home. My old friend Stacy did this to a guy once. I was too young to know how to properly react, but I was so shocked that I made it the last time I hung out with her. You're a psycho, Stacy. Used to work in a call center. One day sat down next to a middle-aged woman I didn't know. Couple hours in I caught her taking a photo of me. When I questioned her she said she'd sent the photo to her friends and their mummy group and they'd all placed bets on whether or not she'd be able to shag me or not. Then you reply, well here's for an easy win. Just bet against you ending up in bed with me. I was at a swim meet away from my high school. My friend and I were hanging outside of the gym when this guy and girl who I never saw before in my life come up to us. I can't remember if they tried talking to us, but suddenly the girl starts grinding against me and the guy looks at me at one point and says you like that, and my friend and I look at each other like that was the weirdest thing we've ever seen in our lives. I didn't respond to the question because yeah, I guess it felt good, but I had no idea who this girl is, so I'm just confused. I didn't want any trouble, so I basically keep my mouth shut even though I could easily push her off of me. Honestly, that might have been the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life. Then they finally just walked away and I never really talked about it since. Out of all the stories, this one had me laughing the most. LOL, just so strange and random. I feel like they were epics. In college I was sat on the green during lunch break when a middle-aged woman walked up to me and asked for a hug. Before I could react she hugged me tight and kissed me on the forehead. I quickly got the heck out of there and scrubbed my forehead with disinfectant hard. She then proceeded to stalk me for a few weeks, and even though I reported her to the college, nothing ever came of it. Eventually I dropped out for unrelated reasons, but a friend of mine who still attended told me a few months later a crazy woman was arrested for stalking and harassing students who fit my description. That's terrifying. I'm glad she was arrested. I hope you are able to feel safe. Some random woman grabbed my junk in the pub and I was sitting down in my football kit after I'd been playing football a few months back. I kind of just laughed and pushed her hand away. But in hindsight it's amazing how different it would be if the roles were reversed. Didn't even really think about that aspect at the time. I was sitting down in my football kit after I'd been playing football a few months back. I've kept sports gear on for an hour or so at times, but keeping it on for months is just gross. Not my story, but my cousin reconnected with a popular girl from high school many years after the fact through social media. She's all he ever talked about back then and she pretty much never even knew he existed. So when he told me they finally connected, I initially was super excited for him. Anyway, after a few months of talking to Lisa long distance, she lived about 3 hours away. They were scheduled to spend the weekend together and to go apartment hunting together. Yes, they had planned to move in together and start a new chapter together. My cousin even turned down a promotion opportunity in a new city to make things work with her. As he set off to go pick her up, he called me and was the happiest I ever heard him. On the way back from picking her up, my husband and I had plans to meet them for happy hour.
Oh, spamming?
A couple hours later, I noticed multiple missed phone calls.
I don't know.
I finally called
I've been
back
playing
and
this
he's not picking
game
up. Just texting back
since
that he's a little worried and has creeped out.
2017
Super confused. I'm trying to get the story out of
or
him,
18 or
but his
whatever.
responses are few and far in between.
and I still
Finally,
haven't
he
gotten the
calls
hang
me
of
from
it
a
yet.
gas station bathroom to say that she's not
It's
the
a
girl
really,
he
really
thought he
hard
was
game.
talking to. She was not Lisa, but instead was Mary, another girl we also went to high school with.
The
When
mortal
he goes to
skill.
pick
I don't
her
have
up,
the
she
mortal,
casually strolls into the car and greets him and makes no reference to the
mortals. I
fact
don't
that
have the
she's a
mortal
totally
skill,
different
mortal
person.
skill.
He was so creeped out that he didn't say anything to her and they continued on with the afternoon. She carried on as if nothing was amiss. Not to mention she had been using Lisa's photos, Lisa's life story, but was now also going by the name Lisa. It was so bizarre. The saddest thing is he really enjoyed this girl's company and they had actually hit it off before meeting up. He spent the day with her and then told her he had been called into work for an emergency. He dropped her off and immediately blocked her on everything, deleted his social media and eventually relocated the next month with work. This is still a touchy subject for him, so I don't bring it up. But I do know that he ever ran into someone who was in touch with the real Lisa and she was happily married and living in another state. We never will know what this girl's end game was. My cousin was super depressed about this for months. It sucked. That would have made a pretty decent episode of Catfish. Bloody heck though, your poor cousin. When I was a delivery driver Pizza Hut, I was also going to school studying music. I delivered to this somewhat run-down hotel, and this like 40-50-year-old lady with a lazy eye came out and is chatting with me. I'm like 19.
Yo,
Wide-eyed and She says that she's studying
IUKHE or
psychology, and I'm like, that
I don't
sounds
know how to
cool.
pronounce your
I'm
name.
studying music.
Do you
She
have
then
a
asks if I
Battlerite
want to
account?
come inside and study some anatomy with her, and I
R
swear
U
I
K
already
H E
fancied
or
and retreated further up into me. When I
how
said
do I
no,
pronounce your
I
name,
got to
dude?
get back to my
What's
job.
this syllable
She kept
stingy?
trying to persist and get me to come in and sleep with her. It was not very fun. And people say that they don't ever get laid as a delivery driver. We were in the early stages of dating. I told her on one particular night that I couldn't hang out because I was going to a family member's birthday party at a local bar. While I'm there I start getting texts from her and I respond because I'm able to. Something is off and I can tell. She eventually tells me that she's here and up at the bar but didn't want to come over. I don't know how she found out which bar we were at because I didn't tell her and this was well before the social media takeover. I immediately told her I was well enough alone. She left and we never talked again. I have met that one girl on dating app. Had quick chat about me just moving recently to
10K
this area.
games.
That I
That's
am annoyed with
crazy.
my new flat because of the local shop below. That was in the evening, and the very next morning at 6:30 a.m. somebody knocked on my
How many
door.
hours
When
is
I had
that?
opened it,
That's
she
like
was a girl I was talking to last night, demanding
that's
a
a lot
hug
of
and a coffee
hours.
because she was driving to me for 1.5 each.
So like
Not
2
to
hours,
mention
3
that
hours.
I had to leave for work very soon. She found me by that one detail I have her. Name of the local shop. It is popular chain
1,000
shop in
hours.
UK and I thought there are more of those shops in my city. Anyway, this was the first time I was scared to be one-to-one with a girl. Spent 2 hours on the phone in conversation with my ex telling her I wasn't getting back with her, was being polite. At the end she says, "Can I use your toilet?" She was sitting out the front of my house the whole time. Jesus Christ, at least you were being nice, she could have had a weapon. Hope you didn't let her in on the air. I
She
was
was
15.
sitting out this
My
house
close
the
friend's
entire time.
25-year-old sister would always tell me that
2.5K
if I
hours,
was
that's
older she
naughty.
would have definitely dated me. At the time, I didn't think much or realized what was happening. She would kiss me here and there. While hugging me she would touch me in places. Made me help her choose what she should wear to dates and then changed in front of me. What the frick? A few months ago I was traveling on a bus and it was nighttime and
I
pretty
have
long
3K
journey. There was a
hours.
girl sitting next to me, roughly
But I
35.
still suck at this
I am
game, bro.
20. So
This game
since
is
we are
so hard,
sitting
bro.
next to each other,
I
I
swear.
talked to her a few times but like casual, question and answer type talk. Then at one point I closed my eyes and I think I fell asleep for like 5 minutes. When I woke up, I felt her hand on my thigh and so close to my pee. I was staring through the window. I didn't know how to respond or what to do.
What
Then
is
I
that?
pressed the power button of the phone to show
11,000
her I am
matches,
awake,
bro. I'm so
and she
bad at this
slowly
game.
removed the hand from there. It was super
Yo, you
awkward
wanna
and I
group
shit.
up? You wanna do
I think this
duels?
is the creepiest one. The others are disgusting or whatsoever but not creepy. My
The
first
game
visit
is
to my
dead
sister's
because it
university.
is
I'm 4
toxic.
years younger. Her flatmate kept telling me how much she liked it up the arse. I think she was drunk, but I was way too immature to see it for what it was.
If you make it so.
Game is too
She was
toxic
the
to live.
girlfriend of a close personal friend.
The
First
community
time I'd met
itself
her,
killed
we
the
were having
game.
a conversation as part of a larger group, and somehow the topic of butt stuff came up. We were all pretty tipsy, and I said something like, I don't judge anyone who's into that, but I'm not. I think buttholes are disgusting. This girl said I was a prude or something, but for the rest of the night she kept following me around and trying to shove her fingers in my butthole. I told her to stop multiple times, and it was very clear I was not kidding. She even remarked at one point that I was too tense, because she was making me nervous as frick, and you can't get your fingers in a tense butthole. This was all fully clothed and in a crowded room. A couple hours later we had gone out to a bar and I ended up alone with her, and I told her how uncomfortable and violated
You
she
guys
had
hearing
made me
this?
feel, and she just laughed and even sent me a meme about it the next day. I'm invited to their wedding next year and I still don't know how to feel about it. I was trying to reconnect with friends I hadn't seen in a while, and all I ended up doing was running around a 800 square featuring apt clenching my butt checks all night. You're too tense. It's hard to get fingers in a tense butthole. Yeah, that's the point. I would not go to that wedding. Went out to a podunk nightclub with some friends. As soon as we walk in, a creepy older lady with 3 teeth walks up with outstretched arms and says, "Ooh, nice beard. Can I touch it?" I replied up. No, she proceeds to touch it, winks at me, and says, "Just the tip." Back when I was super into fitness and was in amazing shape, single digit body fat percent etc. I was working as an IT tech at a hospital and was under a nurse's desk doing
I
cable
see.
management on a new
Oh,
PC
you
install.
sent me
She
something.
straddled me, lifted up my shirt and started rubbing my abs, while a gaggle of other nurses cheered her on, making lewd comments about finally seeing what I was hiding under my shirt. Literally no one cared when I complained. I even stood before the director of the hospital,
Oh shit, we
a
can
woman,
both be
and she
healers.
basically laughed at me and said that it was all in good fun, etc. The gaggle of nurses all defended her, saying it
Alrighty.
wasn't as bad as he is claiming, and that she simply accidentally kicked my shirt up when she went to get something off her
Took
desk.
my
I started wearing skin-tight Under Armour shirts under my work clothes, so even if my shirt ever accidentally lifted a bit, no one would have time to lift it completely to bare skin again before I'd be able to stop them. Sucks being a guy sometimes. I had zero support. Had a woman steal my shirt and grope me in a gay club and try to rip my underwear off. I had to physically remove her hands from my dong. And when I grabbed my shirt back, her friends started shouting that I had gone too far and couldn't take a joke. Just ban straight women from drinking in gay clubs, please. They ban them here in one gay club, or only allow a very few. There were many incidents of busloads of straight women having their hands parties there and using the other guests as their own free strippers dancers. They have a legal exemption to do so. There's a girl that just started working for me. I'm a supervisor in a warehouse environment that is conventionally highly attractive. She's much younger than me though, and I am not interested in younger women. Plus I am still talking to my ex, hoping to get back together with her after a break. She has absolutely no concept of personal space. She just pops up randomly, rubbing against me or putting a foot on my stool and leaning in real close to show off her breasts. Keeps talking about how she doesn't like her boyfriend because he is a deadbeat and wants a real man. I must have mentioned the words "my wife" and "I" or "my wife" half a dozen times, even though I'm not married, just to put her off, and she won't stop. Right now I'm looking for a reason to fire her. She's been screwing up a bit lately at her job, so I'm hoping I can get past the coaching session I did with her, turn it into an official written warning, and then let her go. A 14-year-old girl was all about me kissing her in the bushes when I was 8. To put in perspective, my sister's BF at the time had 2 little sisters. One was 16 and didn't really interact with me or my brother. The other was 14 and would always play with my brother and I. When we first met, she told me I was really cute and kept moving to sit next to me on the sofa. She'd always hug me whenever she saw me, and in general she was always super nice to me. One day my sister and her BF decided they would play Nerf guns with myself, my brother, and her BF's sisters. It was a fun game and I ended up teaming up with the 14-year-old. She led me to the bushes around the side of our property and asked if I wanted to kiss her. I kinda froze up, as I just had assumed up until that point in time that she had just been really nice to me. I panicked more because I had never kissed anyone and because I understood how gross the situation was. So I told her no and kinda just dipped out of the bushes and found my brother. I have never told anyone this. I never really saw her much after that as she broke her back in a car accident about a month later, and by the time she was more able to be out and about, my sister had broken up with the guy. Fate was looking out for you. 14 years old is more than old enough to know that's fricked up. Heck, you were 8 and you knew. Drunk lady stumbles into the bar I hang at after work. I know all the staff so they let me chill while they clean and close. It was about half hour before they officially closed, but I had been the only customer for the last hour, so they were basically done. This lady walks right up to me at this giant empty bar and kinda falls into my shoulder. She's talking nonsense, but I could tell by the bartender's reaction that they weren't gonna serve her. She started hanging on my arm, to the point where my friends thought I knew her. I didn't. I'm getting a bit uncomfortable, but I knew the manager was coming to tell her to leave and I didn't want to make a scene at a place I frequent. The manager was taking his sweet butt time, and this woman, who has at least 30 years on me, started running her hand up and down my leg. I'm able to push her off without agitating her. She was starting to get peeved that she didn't have a drink yet. The manager finally comes out and gets her out. As she's leaving, she flips the double bird while cussing out the staff. Super classy. The whole thing lasted about 20 minutes. I'm not one to be bothered by drunks. It's not the first and won't be the last, but it definitely soured my chill after work hang sesh.
2, 1.
I've got 3. Once when I worked for
Anybody
the city
else
as a
wanna
summer
join?
job, I had to survey sidewalks and identify ones that needed repair. Real simple, easy job. Just walk and listen to my iPod. It was the late 2000s. You
Bruh,
see,
how did
this
she hit
radio
me that
lady
far, bruh?
approaches me and says, "Hey there,
This
handsome,"
game
and
is no
tried to
fair.
strike up a conversation. I kinda just brushed her off and kept on with my job. It was super uncomfortable, especially because I was identifiable as a city employee. It was very off-putting to just be approached in the street like that, so I sympathize with women who go through that regularly. She looked like she was in her 70s and I was maybe 20 at the time. Second,
Oh no.
same job, same summer. I was in a poorer part of town and I hear a voice from a nearby house. I look up and it's a young girl. Couldn't have been older than 13 or 14. And she said, "Hey, you want to come in for a drink or 6?" At which point I said no thanks and kept along my merry way. I have no idea what would have happened if I went into that house, but I get a feeling that it'd have been jumped and robbed if I had. Mostly because it's better than the alternative, which is that a young kid was so abused that she was acting out by propositioning random passers-by. Last one was at a house party and had a bit too
Bro,
much
you
beer.
just got saved.
Was laying on the ground near the bonfire.
You
on
got
the
you got
verge of
saved by the
passing
rig
out.
on there.
This girl I knew, but not well, happened to be next to me. She stuck her hand down my pants, which shocked me awake. I of course freaked out and ran. 20 minutes later I had a crowd of girls around me telling me how awful I was and how I would never be able to get a girl as good as the one who just assaulted me, and how dare I make her cry. Jokes on them though, cause I did find someone who was much better than her. And
Nice.
we've been married for 2 years now. Night out with friends. Went to a club. Within 15 seconds of getting to the main floor, some woman grabbed me and pulled me away from my friends and took me to her group of friends, both male and female. They proceeded to surround me and make comments about my appearance and hair and wouldn't let me go. I'm not exactly comfortable in club situations anyway, but this made me feel really uncomfortable. On Facebook, I was once added by a friend. Her profile stated that she was in a relationship. When I clicked on it, that person was posing as me and using my photo. That was her old account for sure. I had a girl just assume the role of my girlfriend without asking me, telling me how she felt, or even really speaking to me all that often. She just had feelings for me that she fulfilled in her own head by telling others we were together. When she met my real girlfriend, she acted as if my real girlfriend was some skank side piece. I had no idea what was going on until that day, and apparently loads of people in my village thought we were together. Not just because Creepy McGee told them that was the case, but because she gave them a terrifying amount of totally fake details about our relationship together.
Enemy team
I had just turned 13 and was hanging out with a friend after Sunday school, who was 2 years younger than me, so it was semi-babysitting. Then one of the teachers, a woman in her early mid-20s, sits next to me and reaches her hand into
Did this
my
dude
shirt
just
and
ult
asks,
into another
"Is it
ult?
going
That's
there?"
kind of naughty.
I froze and didn't know how to act. Mostly
He said,
because I
"Time
normally
to end
tried to be
these."
on my best behavior when I was around that friend. To be a good example, it was just a weird experience at the time, but now that I think about it, a really inappropriate thing to do. Churches be churching.
Death vortex
Girl I met through friends. She wanted me to be her boyfriend and kept sending me inappropriate pictures and told me she wanted to be flicked in the woods and tied up to a tree. She got
Whoa.
busier and it culminated
She
to her
said she
trying to
wanted to be
break into my
tied up.
house in the middle of the night. When she couldn't break in, she called the cops on me, telling them I kidnapped her. It was a freaking crap show, but looking back on it I could laugh because the cops were trying to make sense of why the kidnapper was in his house and the kidnapped trying to break in. She was arrested, and honestly the last time I heard
You're
it, she was
lagging?
getting help.
Where are you
If you are
from?
new
Which
to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.
EU? Bro, no wonder. No wonder you're able to keep your rank. Did you play like in the past year? Like have you played Battlerite in the past year? Because everybody who been playing Battlerite for a while now have either lost their rank or just quit and went into a private server on Discord or
Bye for
something.
now. People who have visited
I'm sure the
US.
EU
What is a
guys were
WTF
able to
America
make
story? Las
their
Vegas, like 2 minutes from the strip, is
they
a
were able to
ghetto.
get a lot of
Such
matches
contrasting view of abject
before
poverty and
this game
overindulgence
really
just
died.
minutes away from one another. Everyone was so
So-
nice. Why are all the meal portions so big?
I'm
The
about to go
bathroom
back to
stall
mid,
gap is
guys.
real.
I'm tired
Everyone hits the
of
stall gap. Moved to the US with my family in the mid-90s and started high school my junior
oh
year.
boy.
Back home in Norway I had played basketball for a few years, enjoyed it and thought I'd try out for the school team, thinking it would be like home. Practice once or twice a week for an hour and a game against Anther school once in a while. Yeah, not so much. Quickly realized sports is a huge deal in the US. I made JV. There were a couple other JRS on the team.
Oh,
so
no,
I didn't
Jade.
sweat it. The first
Why is
practice
Jade
went
doing that to
4-2.
herself, bro?
5
That's
hours
not
and
even
I
fair.
was pretty nauseous after all the suicide running drills and numerous other exercises. Realizing I hadn't asked too many details beforehand, I asked a teammate how often practice was, and was promptly shocked to find out we
Man,
had
he gonna
practice
take it like a
4 times
man.
week for 2-2. 5 hours plus 2 games
Dude just
per week.
jumped right
And
into
that
my
was
ult.
JV. Suffice to say, the coming months were quite exhausting and didn't leave much time for
I'll play a
anything
while,
else.
but
We
not
did place
ranked.
first in our state though.
Yeah.
And I got whipped into shape pretty
Everybody
good.
who
So
play
yeah,
ranked
you
in the
Americans
past
don't mess
year
around when it comes
lost
to sports.
every
We may
single
not like to
elo they
exercise
had,
for health's
elo
sake,
points.
but we do not lose at anything. I was in Florida and the amount of car wrecks in front yards was baffling.
They're one of the people
As
who
long as it has headlights,
got points
seat
from
belts,
playing
and a
ranked,
license plate, you
where
can drive it in Florida. I saw
those
the guy with a piece of
who
rope instead of a driver's side
just
door
queue up
once.
to
So those weren't car
fight
wrecks. They were
noobs.
that person's main method of transportation.
The noob destroyers, those were the
I
only
went to
people who
downtown Philadelphia
were able
during
to
a
get
5-hour
some rank
layover,
points.
ate a cheesesteak, then witnessed a terrible
All the
and
people with
completely random midday fight on the street.
decency or
It's
dignity or
Always
whatever you
Sunny
call
has
it,
been proven the best depiction of Philly.
just quit.
Me and my girlfriend visited from England and we were walking down the street when
Whoa.
a homeless guy passed
Whoa,
us and said,
Rhaegar.
"If she
I
ain't
mean
your
Rhaegon.
sister, then you're doing all right."
Why you gotta be so
Plus, the
savage, bro?
homeless guy,
It's
that's
only
just
your
good
game,
and
why
I
you have to
keep
be
it.
mid?
Going to an NHL game seemed like I was at an eating event. Also 9 chicken McNuggets costing about
No,
$4.10
I'm getting slimed all over the
and
map.
costing $4.50.
What did I do
Not
to
sure
deserve
about
this?
the exact costs, but you get the idea. Keep up the good work on that English. I'm from Scotland. I worked customer service in college. This young cashier
to
comes out and says
Battlerite.
she can't understand this guy and he is getting mad. Speaking Russian or something. Behind her I hear
He
Dad
is so dead.
I got trapped in a McDonald's in Chicago on my first ever visit to the US because people were protesting the minimum wage. They barricaded everyone
We'll
in the
play.
store.
Anybody
We
else
stuck
want to
there for
jump into
something like
this?
3
It's
hours.
a two-man party
My
right
boss
now.
visited
We
the
can use
US
one more.
recently on a business trip. He kept sending me photos and videos of how huge your trucks
guys
are
can
and how
carry
many
me.
Ford Mustangs he
I'm
kept
too
seeing.
bad at this
He was
game. I
giddy like a
spent
little kid in all
5
his
years playing
videos.
this game and I still never
I'm
understood it.
Australian. Went to this a few years ago in a store. Don't remember which. And get to the cashier. That's a weird accent. I'm Australian. Oh, no way. Do they really have that big boot like in The Simpsons? Disparaging the boot is a bootable offense. I live in Michigan. Husband is from the UK. His family and 2 best friends flew over for the wedding. We had a combined stag night bachelorette. We all went out and partied pretty hard. Toward the end of the night we were at a small bar in my tiny town and the locals were treating our British companions like celebrities. Overheard a girl tell my husband's mate, who is black, "I didn't know they had your kind over there." I'm going to fly to the US in a couple of weeks for the first time. Already had a WTF moment. I had to fill out some personal stuff to get into the country. Questions like, are you planning a genocide in the USA? Yes or no? Are you planning a terroristic attack in the USA? Yes or no? I mean, if someone really is planning something like that and succeed, what then? He lied to us. How could he? He said he won't do a genocide and now look at that. I get that they can charge you for lying on an official paper, but what's the point? He committed a genocide. 300 years jail and 1 month for lying? Or death penalty for genocide and 1 whip on the bus of forwards for lying? Near the end of a vacation to the US I was feeling a bit guilty from eating so unhealthy. I ordered a salad at a restaurant and it came with complimentary ice cream. You cannot win against America. I was in NYC for New Year's Eve 2006/07. A guy next to me overheard I was Australian and grabbed my hand and told me he was praying for me due to the loss of Steve Irwin. Someone near us overheard and also joined in, so I, an Australian atheist with little care for Stephen Irwin, found myself in the midst of a small, but very enthusiastic, prayer circle. One summer some friends and I road tripped from Pennsylvania to Utah and back, 10,000 km in 2 weeks. Good times. We're from Canada so we're pretty used to Americanisms. However, we found the stark contrast in billboards in the Bible Belt to be amusing. Every couple clicks it alternated between Jesus says, confess your sins and XXX girls girls girls. Next exit. Seeing scripture on the back of transport trucks was pretty bizarre too. And the aggressive preachers on the radio. And the giant 50-foot crosses. Plural. I mean, it's called the Bible Belt for a reason. But I didn't really appreciate the scope until I was there. American are unreasonably nice. Road trip 15 years ago, car breaks down on the freeway. 3 cars stop. One guy fixes my car. One guy orders, and subsequently pays for, the part to fix the car in it. Third guy, his brother-in-law delivers it, all in about 30 minutes. Then we all go out for dinner and they buy me and my buddy dinner. The guy who fixed our car emails his cousins in Colorado. A week later we're having dinner and staying the night at their place. I hear WTF stories about America, but when I think of any of my WTF America stories, I have had nothing but amazing experiences.
Bruh.
So, being Indonesian,
You guys
world's
see that?
largest Muslim country, and male, my dad always gets taken into a special room for interrogation every time we arrive in the US. When I happened to be with him, I got tired of waiting on my own. So I went to one of the officers guarding the area and asked how long it would take for my dad to get out. He went, "Oh my god, honey, you're all alone." And suddenly everyone was rushing to get my dad out as soon as possible. Kept asking me if there was anything I needed, and kept telling me not to be scared. Obviously that made me actually nervous. What a frick is happening? Then I found out Americans just suck at telling Asian ages and apparently I looked 8-12. They thought they made my dad leave a child all alone in a foreign country. I was 16. Some of mine were, WTF, why is there so much land everywhere? WTF, why is everyone's house so big? WTF, why are the roads so long? Explains why the cars are so big. WTF, why is fuel, gas, so cheap. WTF. Why are strangers talking? WTF. Why is food so expensive? WTF. How can I get this much meat in a meal and it still costs less than $10? WTF. Why am I getting ID'd, carded, everywhere? WTF. No. To another person. I'm not Australian.
Oh no.
I'm English. Damn it. When I was living in California back in the late 90s minus 2000, the news came on and announced that one of the stories would be NATO starts bombing Kosovo. I turned the news up, only to have to sit through the more important story first. Out of season rain in LA. I was talking to a girl years ago about the US. It was around the 4th of July. I'm British. She's American. She wished me a happy the 4th of July. I told her we don't celebrate that in the UK. She didn't understand why. Just got back from Miami. Told a woman who was walking her cat that my girlfriend and I thought her cat was cute. She then told us she is not a prostitute, and nor was the cat. The portion sizes and prices of soda. Less WTF America, more WTF, why don't they sell this in the UK? State Fair
Whoa.
in Texas. They were
That's
serving
too
fried
much
butter.
sauce for today.
A friend of mine lived in Virginia for some years for school and the locals. It was an average-sized town, not some hillbilly crap hole. Asked him if we had cars, electricity, internet or fridges in Luxembourg. Mine was on the flight home. We just landed, and I overheard the following exchange. Mom, where are we? Amsterdam. It's in German. Well, at one point in time she wasn't too wrong. This one isn't really negative, but still amazes me. I'm from Sweden, and visited New York a few summers ago with my family. We had just gotten off the bus, and my stepsister was feeling really nauseous from the bus ride. She walks up to a garbage can and takes a few deep breaths, trying to not vomit. Suddenly a guy in a suit with a briefcase walks up, asks if she's alright, tells her to wait there, and comes back a few seconds later with a bottle of water for her.
Whoa.
Just a complete stranger. That's not something you'll see in Sweden. I went to the US this summer to work for my uncle's company in LA for 8 weeks. I'm currently studying at university in the UK. I decided to fly up to San Francisco to visit my cousin for the weekend and flew from LAX. After my return flight, I was about to exit the LAX American terminal when all the police around me got their guns out and started shouting about a shooting.
Dang,
at
my
the
teammates are not doing
Chaos
so hot.
erupted around me with people everywhere throwing their suitcases to the floor and screaming. I had no idea what to do. I had just bought a tea from Starbucks and I didn't really want to throw it on the floor and run about, so I followed this stampede of people through the terminal. I found a room to hide in with 20 other people. We all lay on the floor being quiet, trying to stay calm. People all around me calling their loved ones, saying their goodbyes. It was insane. I didn't have any service on my AT&T phone, so I just sat there drinking tea, contemplating what I would do if a gunman appeared. I realized now it was the most British thing to do at that moment. We were in there for 25 minutes when we got told it was clear. All of this happened because the police heard a loud noise and there was someone dressed as Zorro, which raised suspicions. WTF America. They have bank
No.
drive-thrus. They go to the bank like they go to McDonald's. One summer when we visited some friends out in Tennessee and we're eating fresh beer he'd shot that afternoon off his BBQ, drinking beer and sharing differences in culture, at which point out of nowhere he pulls out a pellet gun and shoots a squirrel from the top of a phone line. He then proceeded to
Hitting all the counters.
clean and cook the squirrel. Tasted like chicken. I have no doubt that if there was a global apocalypse it might take Tennessee a few years to notice, and only because they stopped making more Bud Light.
I would try not to
The
hit the
food.
counters,
Holy crap.
guys.
Me and my sister would occasionally share meals
Focus
because there
my
was so much
attention
of it.
on the
And
counters
there's
and
still
not hitting
loads
them.
left behind.
That's my priority for
The
today.
flags, man. The flags. I used to joke with my mom that if my career doesn't work out, I'm just gonna open a flag shop in the US. My dad lives in America, and I visited him for the first time in 10 years
No.
last September.
Did I hit
He
that? Did I
was
do
take me
that?
to the local police gun range, where I was taught how to fire a fully automatic assault rifle, a semi-automatic rifle, and a variety of pistols. They didn't even know my name and they put a gun in my hands and told me to shoot at a target.
Nice, we got a
Best
kill though.
freaking day ever. Visited Miami a few years ago with a friend. We started a brief conversation with the hotel porter and told him we were from London. He goes, hey, I know some British slang. Throughout our stay, whenever he saw us, we were greeted with, hey, what's up wankers and good morning you miserable sea. It was hilarious. Back in the 90s I was in San Francisco. In Australia I had never seen a beggar, but there were heaps of them in San Francisco. Anyway, I was walking around, and this beggar comes up to me shaking his
Nice, we got another one.
coins in my face.
And another
He never
one.
said a word, just shook his can in my face. So I said to him, no thanks mate, I've got enough coins of my own. Stayed at a hotel in New York and the TV had only one program, commercials for medicine. And the style of the TV spots was outrageous, as if they were selling magic pills. Deep fried butter, really? Here is the conversation I had with a cashier in a Dunkin' Donuts in Ohio. You speak funny. Me. I have an accent. I'm French Canadian. What do
You'll get used to it.
Me. Well, English isn't my first language. So you're not deaf? Because you speak really slowly, and in a weird way. Me. It's a French accent. Okay. I understand. Okay. It's a Canadian accent. Weird. I mean, they weren't wrong. It is a Canadian accent. First city I came to in the US was to LA, and went to Malibu Beach with a friend. My first reaction was I was told there would be fat people.
Ha!
Were fit as
It was a bait,
I was
baby.
ashamed to
You baited.
take
She
off
got you
my
baited. I don't know why she
Being
backed off for it.
21
She was
able
you
to
baited
buy
and then she left.
WTF.
That's not fair. You can't just
All
get
the
you
cars
baited
were
and then
good.
leave.
When I came back to my hometown, the cars seemed like toys in comparison.
No shit.
I went to Walmart once.
You got
We
this
are
straw,
so
bro.
sorry. I was in Hella 2002. Went into a petrol station in Inglewood on my way to West Hollywood. There was an old Korean guy behind the counter and one middle-aged white women shopping. 2 minutes after I walked in a low-rider,
No!
black guys
I got
walked into
dunked
the
on.
station. Now I'm black, but
He
I'm
said,
white, but these guys
N1.
were gangster as heck and were all black. 4 of them walked into the shop while one was pumping petrol. The moment they walked in, they started swearing at the old Korean guy, cussing him out. This went on for half a minute. Me and the old white lady looked at each and both thought this place was going to get robbed. The old Korean guy was standing behind the counter and had this calm look on his face the whole time, and as soon they were done swearing he just came out, said, you black soul-eating mother suckers need shut your big lips cause I don't understand one word of what you just said.
It's Shifu,
Everything
bro.
went
Shifu
quiet and I
doesn't come
started
out.
to crouch down thinking this where I'm going to die. Just as I started to hide, all the black guys burst out laughing and were falling all over each other, and the old Korean man was laughing as well. Turns out this how they greet each other every time they come into the shop. Me, the old white lady, had the exact same look of relief on our faces. It
No.
was like scene out of Russia. And a few. I lived in the Midwest as a kid, but I am Australian. I had a woman who genuinely thought we took a bridge to get to America from Australia. I had a teacher who would not let me into the classroom in the morning unless I said a dingo stole my baby. I was in grade 2 and had no clue what it meant. This same teacher would make me recite the Pledge of Allegiance. My sister showed up on the first day of school to find the discipline corner was Australia. With a
No.
neatly drawn map
No,
of the
no.
because that was where the
No.
cards were. And lastly, the many people, children and adults, asking me if we
Rip.
rode kangaroos. I nearly got run over in Daytona Beach. Why the
We
frick
almost
is
had it,
anyone allowed
guys.
to drive on a
Geo
public
next.
beach?
Ooh.
Walking into a supermarket and seeing
Whoa,
the endless
that's
cereal
one
plates
down.
and the amount you can choose from.
Uh-oh.
Blew my mind. Also, when I was
Oh,
working at a camp
oh.
over a summer, I was devastated to see that the people who ran the place would actually choose to use throwaway dishes, cups and cutleries instead of normal ones. I don't know if that's typical,
If
but it
Alicia
sure hurt my eco-protecting side to
dies,
see all the
I think
waste
that's
just
it.
one day would generate. Had a good time though. Why is it acceptable for a lot of Americans to kick their kids out of home as soon as they turn 18? I'm 30 now, so it's
You never
beautiful.
played Shifu
But at
before,
least
have
when
you?
I was a kid, it was just a holdover from a time when
Oh,
it was
no.
more doable. I come from a blue-collar family that never had a college graduate
Oh.
before my generation, so nobody ever had
You
debt to
saw a
worry
rope.
about. We we lived in the rural Midwest
Aw.
where decent to high-paying jobs in manufacturing and construction were easy to come by.
She
Housing in
cannot
general was cheap.
win
It
this
was all in
match.
all just much easier to do when my parents
She has
were
no
that age and even easier
possibility.
for my grandparents, all of whom also got married at that age.
Oh
The
my
difference
god.
is that my little farming town absolutely frickin' boomed in
Almost.
population when I was growing up. And it coincided perfectly with the manufacturing jobs getting shipped
Oh,
out of
no.
town and the financial crash
Toxicity.
happening right as I graduated high school.
It's just a
I grew
casual
up
match,
expecting
dude.
to leave when I was 18,
Hold
but
your
luckily my mom
panties.
saw the writing on the wall and knew it wouldn't
And I
be
got
possible
more
by
score
the
than
time
you.
I was at age, so she let me stay as long as I was working. A lot of people in my area specifically, formerly rural, now suburban Midwest, weren't so lucky, and had way less flexible parents who basically told them to suck it up because it was easy for them, so logically it'll be easy for you too. So I can't speak for America as a whole, but while it's really not nearly as common as it used to be, when it happens in mostly white areas that used to be pretty small, it's because it used to be easy 30 years ago and some people simply aren't willing to recognize how different the world is and just shove their kids off to be an adult before they have any reasonable chance of being self-sufficient. My ex-boyfriend's take on this was that he would have paid for them to live at his house up to 16, get a job at 16 and pay rent, then kick them out as soon as they graduate. He said because at 18 they are an adult and all adults should take care of themselves. Now he had crippling back pain and wouldn't get out of bed for days, expecting others to wait on him. It's a back-asswards thing that people do. My parents had the healthy version of this. They said after I graduated that they'd be giving me no further money to support me, but that I always had a bed and meals for free at home when I needed it. At times I did need it, and overall it was a healthy transition into self-sufficiency. My grandmother kicked me out when I was 19. I was working at Taco Bell for $7.25 an hour. Gave me 3 months to save up and move out. Kinda impossible making that little. Plus I had to pay for school out of pocket. Slept outside for 2 days. Called crying asking to come back. She said nah, it's time you learn how to be a man. And I never went back. Maybe cause I didn't talk to her a lot or interact socially, but I still think it was fricked up. Roadmap for failure in the future. I'm interested in your story, how you came up out of that. It also depends on what the kid is doing. My cousin's son dropped out of college at 19 to come home and play WoW in the basement 24/7. Refused to get a job, go back to school, volunteer. After a few months we did an intervention. Said he was free to play video games all day and night. Just not at my cousin's house. Could go on social assistance, get an app with friends, whatever. Just not stay where he was. Gave him a 3-month deadline, by which time he had started going to the gym and had found a college diploma course he liked and headed back to school. He graduated and is doing great now, has his own app in another city and a nice girlfriend. Hope he kicked WoW to the curb. It seems like it kind of fricked him up for a bit. This only happens in families that already have other underlying issues. If you and your parents get along, there is a pretty high likelihood you are sticking around for a while. If you don't want to get a job, dropped out of high school, and don't help out around the house, then maybe they will look at giving you a kick in the pants. A recent study found that 52% of people age 18-29 still live with their parents. This is the highest since the Great Depression. High cost of rent and student loans are a main contributing factor. I have to think that the parents that do this truly never wanted kids to begin with, or didn't realize it until it was too late, and this is their easy out of having the burden of responsibility. Just my opinion. I have nothing to base this off of, their buttholes. In our circumstance, we said to our 18-year-old son, you can't have your girlfriend over to our house while we're at work and have loud sex with her while your little sister is home. Give your sister some money and send her to the park for an hour. Take her to her grandparents' house. Something. This is not okay. Julie, we told you not to do this. Your girlfriend's moaning and wailing is embarrassing and upsetting. Stop it. This is our house. These are our rules. No loud sex while your sister's home. Go to your girlfriend's house. Get a hotel room. Julie, if you do this one more time, we're going to kick you out. We're serious. This is not your house. You pay no rent. We decide what goes on in our house. And this loud moaning and sex talk cannot go on while your little sister's home. If you disrespect us and your sister again, you're out. Do you understand?
No shit.
He left us
We
no
are
choice.
destroying these
Well,
guys.
she did, really. All
We are
she had
wreaking
to do was
havoc.
be quiet, for
Your
Christ's
team
sake.
won the orb.
I lived at home until 27. Once I had a full-time job, my parents only asked that I help around the house and call them if I'm gonna be out late. Staying at home helped me save the money to purchase a house with my now wife. Pretty much the same for me.
Oh, this is the same guy.
My parents for several
This is
years
the
after
same
college,
toxic
bought my house at 28. They didn't
guy
push my
from
older sister
before.
out a couple years after I left, but it was a situation where she could easily afford her own place and kind of needed to just learn to be an independent adult. My dad tried to do this to me. I had been working 30 hours a week during the school year, 50 during the summer, milking cows since I was 15. Buying food for the family, so I would have something to eat when I got home. I told him no, and I am pretty sure that my mom chewed his butt, as he stopped saying anything to me after that. After 3 semesters of community college, I transferred to a state school 150 miles away. I was super happy when my grandparents basically made up the excuse that we are moving and don't want the new house to be empty, so you should move in for the summers. Only spend one night in the house by myself. Thanks, Grandma. Now I do foster care and I tell her all our kids that they are welcome to stay until they are 30. Not sure who will take us up on the offer, as it's only been a few years, but the offer is very real. A bit of context you're missing is that in America, it was expected that you move out when you're 18. This is a bit of an artifact from a couple decades ago, but the idea was, nobody wanted to stay at home after 18. You turned 18. You were done with school. You could get a job and your own place. Have some freedom. Live your life. Compare and contrast to some cultures where you're expected to live with your parents until you get married. That idea is stifling to many Americans. Now, all that is different than being kicked out at 18. But that's the context. Now take a family that has issues. Parents who are struggling or abusive in some way. They'll go, you're 18. This is America. Get out. On top of your last paragraph, there are also some families who feel like this culture of independence is a really good thing, and so it is their duty to enforce it. Maybe that's exactly what you're saying. But I think there's a difference between abusive parents using this culture as an excuse, and those who are honestly trying to be good parents. Crappy parents throw their kids out at 18, because that's the earliest
No.
they can legally do it. This isn't really
I clicked
seen as
ES space to
There is a
fly
cultural
far away, but I
expectation
didn't.
for adult children to move
I didn't
out
get
and be
away in
fully
time.
independent as soon as they can, though. But that's not the day
I
they turn
tried
18.
so hard.
100 years ago you could throw your 9-year-old out to end the street if you were tired of him. We're making progress. Just to balance the scales a bit, I know people here in utopian Denmark who got kicked out when they were 18. Social safety net being better than most places, it is less harsh, but still. And even here in America, this isn't really a popular thing to do, and in many cases is frowned upon. Don't get me wrong, it happens, but I would say it's much less of an American thing to do and more of an butthole parent thing to do instead. My kid is a preteen. He can stay with us as long as he wants, provided he is doing something productive with his life and working towards self-sufficiency. I only care about that really because it is good to have professional and personal goals, and I want him to be able to take care of himself after I die. I would never make him move out because he is a certain age. At some point, ask them to pay rent, then secretly put that rent into a bank account, and when they are ready to leave, hand them the cash. My dad started threatening to kick me out as soon as I hit puberty. His limit was my refusal to adopt his racism and involving myself romantically with people he only referred to in derogatory terms. I had a week to pack my crap and find a place because he had already bought a new house. I was immediately disowned and battled homelessness and unemployment for the next 2 years. It's been 3 years since we've spoken. He still has sentimental items of mine. And he never told me his new address, though it wasn't hard to find. I feel this only happens in families where the relationship is already damaged and the parents are usually raging narcissists. Although I'm going off of anecdotal evidence. The parent are usually raging narcissists. I think this is a very good and accurate point. Maybe with white Americans, but it's not the case with Asian, Hispanic, and Arab Americans who let their kids stay at home until they're ready to move out. The kids usually end up looking after their parents when they get old too, instead of dumping them in a retirement home. Those cultures are just more family orientated compared to Western cultures, which are more about being independent. Here in Pakistan and most Asian countries, it is sort of a tradition that you live with your parents till marriage, until and unless you are studying in a university and live in the uni housing, or you have graduated from uni and have a nice paying job. Even then, the renter don't kick out their children. Children usually move out when they think it is right for them. Also for us, it is absurd that parents don't support you. Actually, I don't know any single person that had to pay for their education out of pocket. Parents here 99% of the time pay for all education, including university, masters, and basically any education until and unless my parents make over $100,000 a year and don't pay for my tuition. Yet I can't qualify for any assistance to help pay for my college because I am under 24 and my parents make too much. Basically, in my state at least. Don't know if this applies to all the states. They assume your parents will support your schooling financially if they make more than a certain amount. I think it has something to do with the social aspect of having adult children living in your home. You are seen as a failure of a parent if your child can't hold their own by them.
He try harder. Nobody improve. He just tries super hard.
I didn't feel like a failure to meet society's expectations. When money and jobs were plenty, it was easy for kids just turned 18 to leave and start their own families.
That's some crazy wings.
This was back when minimum wage was actually the minimum wage you could live off of. It's hard to say if it was just easier for them to leave, or if it was trendy socialized to be on your own. I believe that was around or before the baby boomers, so it was there just long enough to become the social norm or the expected. I read about other countries where you can stay with your parents until you're 30 plus or married. Sometimes even then the newly married couple just starts their own family inside the previous family's home. That's so wild. I stayed with my parents until I was 20, and even then I was filled with shame for not being able to provide for myself like I was expected to. Both of my kids are 25, and both of them have, over the last 7 years, moved out and come back twice. I've always told them that no matter what, my home is a soft landing space for them if they need it, and thankfully they've come back here rather than try to tough it out unnecessarily. But here's the thing. They both have tried to rush through getting their crap back together to move back out as soon as they can, and it's not me that's rushing them out the door, it's them. They have been fed this social construct that they should feel ashamed for living at home, that they should be off trying to make something of themselves, and if they're still living with their mom, they've got a tick in the failure box. My daughter and granddaughter live with me now, again, and I've done my best not to put pressure on her to stay, but gradually, over the past 6 months she's starting to let go of that balls and beginning to make decisions based on what she needs, and not what society or other family members think. I love my kids, and I love my alone time, but I'm going to make good and goddamn sure that they don't have to struggle unnecessarily. I don't believe it builds character. I think it's a low-level trauma that I can help them to avoid. There's nothing wrong with a struggle that actually gets you somewhere, but spinning your wheels, jumping from fire to pan, that takes away time and energy from crap that will actually improve their lives. I have no idea, this has got to be a crazy thing. I have a friend from HK and he is confused by this as well. At 18, while you are an adult, you're not ready to play on an adult level yet. Why not stay at home, save your money, sure help with food and bills, but save your money, go to school, learn a trade, start a business, or buy some real estate to use as a business property. As a parent, why would you set your child up for failure by telling them they have to get out at 18? Let them stay and make sure that when they make that step and move out, they have a strong foundation and a safety net that is in place. Some parents believe that letting your kids stay past 18 is coddling them and setting them up for failure in that way. They made it on their own at 18, so the kid should too. I don't agree, but that's the main mindset I've encountered. Come to Sweden, we are probably the most individualistic country on earth. We have kids who move out of their home as low as 15 without people bulging an eye. It's a bit harder now, because we are in a housing crisis, but it's still expected for kids to move out ASAP. My oldest kid turns 18 next month and I would never dream of making him move out.
Alright, y'all.
An awesome
Oh shit, he
I
left.
will be so sad when he decides
Alright,
to
guys,
move,
I'm about to end the
whenever
stream.
that
I
might
think
be.
we will.
I feel you. My oldest just moved out about
Alright,
3
GG's,
weeks ago, and
GG's.
I'll tell you, it was such a mixed bag
Alright,
of
guys.
emotions.
I'm
Super
actually
proud and
spacing
super
out
sad
now.
At the same time. The move
2
was his
hours.
decision,
I'll see you guys.
'cause
Bye
he has a
bye.
good job and wanted